Then what do you do? Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Begin with approval of the agenda.
Madam President, I move the approval of the agenda with the following amendments. 1, additional certified and classified personnel actions for consideration, item number F-3. 2, item number 5-B, other curriculum council items moved from consent agenda to new business, item number I-4. Number 3, item 5-C, other ESCO project moved from consent agenda to new business, item number I-5. 4, add item number I-6, new business 2024 HVAC improvement project at A. Huber Elementary School. Number 5, add item number L-1, executive session, personnel matters for non-elected personnel.
Should that be E3 on the number 1? Instead of F3?
So.
Yeah, it says F3, but
The other one.
Okay. Number 1, additional certified and classified personnel actions for consideration, item number E-3.
Yeah. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just have a question on, I just want to confirm with Pauline on the consent agenda, number 5, that the payment that has been made to Burns Van Fleet, it's just been the $6,500, correct? And no other payments?
No.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passed. Do you have any public comment today? No public comment. Move on to recognitions.
There you go. I'm Dr. Mike Dominguez. Thank y'all for being here. There's a full house. So if you would, we'll get your plaque and then get you out in front. And then Mr. Cessna will take a picture of us all. This January, if you're not aware, is Board Appreciation Month. There's a lot that the board does for us as a Board of Education. Number 1, they hire me. Number 2, they approve all expenditures. Number 3, make sure that we have a vision, mission, and that we're following. So definitely want to celebrate them and then appreciate them because they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart. Most board members spend at least 12 hours weekly. I would say these board members probably spend a lot more than that. That's on the average of a national survey. So there's a lot of time, energy, and effort that they put into ensuring, number 1, that they know what's on the board agenda. Number 2, that they're moving the district forward. So if you would, John Weesey, come on up. John Weesey has been on the board 1 year, and then we'll let him get back there. We'll shake his hand. Thank you, sir. And he's got a beard going, got a little dirt on his face. He looks good. Miss Jackie Jiggett, 1 year on the board. Also, thank you for your service. Let me get one big picture. Mr. Mark Rude, he is 11 years on the board. In April will be 12 full years. So that's some miles for sure. Thank you, Mr. Rude. Thank you for your service, sir. Thank you. Thank you. That's a lot of time and effort. That's Jennifer Stanley, 7 years on the board. She's the board president, and in July will be 8 years. So that's a lot of time, energy, and effort put into the district. Thank you so much for your service. Ms. Dana Naniga, 7 years currently, 8 years in July. And that's a lot of time, energy, effort. Thank you, ma'am. Randy Ralston, we got some newbies, 4 months on the job. Thank you. And he's a new grandfather. I don't know what his title is, but grandfather. There you go. Andy Firemeyer, 3 months on the job. Thank you for your service, sir. And then we'll get a picture of him. That's all right, Ron. There you go.
Everybody squeeze together. Act
Like you like each other.
Yeah, ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Any correspondence? Move on to the consent agenda.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
For a second? Second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will begin with our first discussion item, the educator rising. I'm trying to spot you, but
Ms. Turpin has a few students here with her, so there you go.
Hello? Extra nervous. We had one other person that was presenting and they found out today they weren't able to come. So. Okay. I'm Jeanette Turpin. And I teach the early childhood education pathway and the teach and train pathway at Garden City High School. And with that, our student leadership organization is called Educators Rising. It's sort of in the same family as Future Farmers of America, Future Business Leaders of America. We used to be Future Educators of America, but we reformed into Educators Rising. And they reformed in 2015, which is the year that I started, but I wasn't in this position yet. So my predecessor actually got us started on the very ground level before there was even an official Kansas chapter. And so we were able to join with them when they joined, and then just slowly as they kind of picked up steam, we've been able to do more and more and more. And these guys are going to tell you about it. This is Erica Lundell and Omar Quezada, and over there taking notes because Erica's also here for another class that she needed to do stuff for. Is Addison Rogers. And these guys are all three of them are officers in Educators Rising. So bear with us because like we had who was saying what and now we're refiguring it out. Yeah. Did you want to do this part or not? Okay. So Educators Rising, like I said, it's a professional organization. It's a student leadership organization. So it gives chances for students to do things like hold officer positions. They're able to, if they choose to, be involved in the state organization and stuff, and they can participate in that and help plan events through that. But the main thing is that it's co-curricular to an extent where we're able to do a lot of the Educators Rising activities and experiences within our classes. So, and that goes for the early childhood side as well as the K-12 public school education side. So both of those things are able to be involved in Educators Rising. And basically we're able to then, through our organization, apply these skills to the school district and to have real life interactions in the school district and then also in the community as well. So Erica is going to talk real quick about one of my pathways that I teach since they're so interrelated.
So your first class that you start with is orientation into early childhood development, which in that class you learn about child development, like early childhood development and you learn, you get to have the ability to learn CPR.
To be certified.
To be certified. And then you can go one of two ways, which I wanted to do both, but couldn't. I went to Foundations to Childhood Development, which in that class, you get the opportunity to do a whole bunch of different things. And so far, we've been talking, well, we did a training. Well, we kind of just learned a whole bunch of stuff, like a lot of stuff.
Do you remember what that training is for? What it lets you be able to do?
Teach preschoolers, basically.
Yeah, basically, it's the 18-hour prerequisite for licensing that we have to do in order to set foot into an early childhood classroom in any real sense of it. So to be able to get any level of job in early childhood education that's licensed, you have to go through this 18-hour training. So we had all 25 students.
They all passed.
And now have the certificate. And then that plus the previous CPR first aid from the year before, they're completely certified to start in a child care center. All they have to do is the orientation with the center themselves. Yeah. Then you want to talk about the next class that you get to go to, hopefully.
Well, the next class is early childhood
Exploration.
exploration.
Nope,
No,
application.
application.
I have different names because they're dual credit for the college and for the high school. And so I get them mixed up all the time.
In that class, you get to go out and be in the, there you go.
There you go. Sorry about that.
You get to go out and be in the classes and be with the kids.
Yeah, so for that pathway for the, and that can be taken for dual credit or just for high school credit. It's the same exact class either way, so they don't have to, worry that they're gonna have to do like more work or something for the college class. It's a very rigorous class on its own. And so kids go out, they take my class for 2 class periods in a row, and they go out for about an hour and a half a day. Monday through Thursday, the entire semester, they go to at least 3 placements. So they'll go to Head Start, they'll go to Garfield, our school district's early childhood program. And they'll go to a community daycare center, whether it be Hope Lutheran or community daycare. So that's pretty much that one. Teach and train, the other student, Brianna, that was going to be here is in the teach and train pathway. They start with the same class, it's human development class from conception to age 8. During that second class that it's very parallel, it's very similar. So her foundations class that she's in is just like teaching as career, where you're doing job shadowing and getting real life job skills, doing a lot of interviewing teachers and learning about pedagogy and learning about lesson planning and learning about classroom design and all the stuff that you would expect to have to become a teacher, skills with discipline and guidance and all that stuff. And then the third one, again, is an internship class. And so we have students go, again, 2 class periods, it's very parallel, 4 days a week to 3 different placements. They can pick elementary, intermediate, middle, and high school, and they pick 3 of the 4. Sometimes people really want a 4th one, and so we'll like sneak it in at the end if they really want a different experience. And they'll go to a full day placement at each placement. So they'll be there for 8 hours, but then also that regular interaction where they're at that expected time that they're at, and teachers really utilize them when they're there to interact with the kids. They're not just observing or sitting back and watching. They're actually doing the job of what you do when you're teachers. They're leading small groups or out reading in the hall with kids that need intervention or that are practicing for testing or whatever. So they really have a lot of interaction. And then as assignments that we have, we give them assignments to do their own lesson plan activity if the teacher allows it, or to take over one for the teacher if they'd rather, and just a whole bunch of involvement stuff. So that's kind of the pathways that we do, and each of the pathways is connected to Educators Rising. So this Omar is our president, so he's going to tell you about the meetings real quick that we do.
Hello, we do the meetings on Thursdays, typically after schools, but we also do them during her time. Like she said, I'm the president. Our vice president, which is sadly not here, is Valerie. Then we have a secretary, 2 secretaries.
2 secretaries.
Yeah, Vanessa and Spencer. And then we have the treasurer, Edison, and we have the head of social media.
That's me.
Oh, really?
Yes, and social media, yep.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's okay. You just tell them what we do.
All right, pretty much. We set stuff up in a way, like. I can't remember, was it in December when we did something for CSIC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We helped them with some of the. Memory's
This
fuzzy.
one?
Yeah,
Yeah, this one.
we do job shadows, observations, internships, volunteer at other schools, and we. I'm sorry, I'm so nervous.
You're okay.
All right. We were helping out at a child center, like fixing it up. I
Yeah,
remember
so
doing that.
real quick for 1 second. So on this one, kind of the school district sort of, now that we have so many internships with them and have done so much stuff with them, they know that we are, we're around and that we volunteer for things. And so we have principals of schools call and ask if we can come volunteer at Goal Crusher nights or family involvement nights and all that kind of thing. So we're just like on call and they're like, can you send some kids over? How many? Yeah, sure. How many do you need? 5. We put up the sign up and we usually get 7 so that we make sure that we have enough. So we've been able to do several of those things. Charles Stone's done a lot of stuff at Georgia Matthews. So yeah, so we know that. We attended a city commission meeting with Educators Rising. We ended up going for, we'll tell you about it in a minute, but American Education Week. The city did a proclamation for us, and this was the city commission meeting where they were voting on the proclamation. So we were able to attend it, which happened to be really cool because they were talking about community daycare at the time. And so with our education people, the K-12 education people and the early childhood, it was just a really relevant thing to get to see. Now you tell them about that.
Okay, I'm sorry. With the educator child center? The child center, yeah.
Garden Academy,
City
Early Learning
Academy, We deep cleaned it. We had bathrooms to clean, we cleaned up the showers. It was the old retirement. Over the homestead, was it?
Yep.
We fixed it up. We brought in some new toys, brought in some new furniture. We cleaned it up and we organized all the rooms. We separated it by preschool and daycare.
Or like infant.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, so that was a really big deal. We had over $90,000 worth of equipment and supplies and stuff that had been given in a grant to Garden Academy Early Learning Center, which we have a partnership with because through our pathway, we have to have an advisory committee. And so the Finney County Child Care and Early Learning Network is one of our partners on that. And so they're the ones that are starting that center. And I was like, hey, I have a bunch of people that want to learn about classroom science, classroom design. And so everybody from, again, both pathways, the K-12 pathway and the early childhood pathway got together and we spent 3 block days there. So about 4 hours per day, about 12 hours worth. We've also get to go on college visits and conferences. COVID kind of messed this up, but we've been able to go to Wild About FCS, which is where we go and learn about being a teacher specifically in family and consumer science. But when we're there, we talk about the education college pathway and the family and consumer science college pathway. So it's an overlap. And then they do sessions to teach kids about teaching. We went to Hayes for the state conference a couple of years ago. This is right before COVID. This is, if you know, Matt Allen's daughter. She qualified for nationals, but wasn't able to go that year. And that was our first national qualifier. Oh, I have that place. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So for American Education Week, we talked to the mayor, the proclamation. We got to watch proclamation and
Because he also came to our school to
Yes.
read the
to
proclamation.
read it, yes. We got to take a picture with him and the proclamation. We also had students in our classes write letters and then give them to the teachers that they appreciated or liked or whatever. They also gave them to past teachers that they miss or so on and so forth. We also posted posters around the school in each academy. So it's right little notes to teachers, just showing their appreciation for them.
So we're trying to do a lot where we include teachers. We're actually working on a project now where we're designing our own t-shirts. And then we're going to go to the makerspace and use their heat press and make t-shirts for teachers at the high school.
And if students want them.
And yeah, and just let them know. Conferences and educational opportunities. So this year we went to the Central Region Educators Rising Conference. It's a conference and a competition. So it's a full day, like 4 sessions plus a keynote speaker, where everybody gets to pick between the different sessions that they go to, like a professional conference. And then at the same time, we have students compete in the field of teaching. So this time we had 45 students, by far the most. Like the Wichita schools didn't even have close to what we had at Wichita. And so it was really cool to have a presence. And it's a really big deal because we'll tell you in a minute, but we've been in the works for a while now about getting a Western Regional Conference. And we almost had it this year, but they moved it from here to Hayes, and then Hayes canceled on them last minute. So we're gonna have it here next year, but I'll have one more talk about that in a minute. So competitions, Addison competed, and then we had 10 other students compete. And out of all the students that competed, 5 of them qualified for state, Addison being one of them, which is why she should be up here practicing her public speaking. She gave a speech called Educators Rising Moment about what inspired her to go into education and inspirational teachers and stuff like that. There's a lot of different categories that they can decide between. So there's the categories where you make something like the bulletin board, or where you make an educational material. There's ones where you do job shadowings and interviews. There's ones where you do an actual lesson plan, and you have to go and implement it in a school, record it, put the video together and send that in. Just a bunch of different options, all of them related to the field of education in general. And they're flexible enough that K-12 gets to do it. That's what it was made for. And now they're adding in the early childhood piece too, which is really good. These are our state qualifiers. 5 of them this year qualified. Like I said, we're going to Washburn on February 1st. And we're going to take the officers with us as well. And it's another conference and competition. So we're always learning something. It's not just sitting around waiting for the next competition to happen. There's always education stuff. If they qualify for nationals, they'll go to Orlando in June. And we have a pretty good track record. We didn't compete for the 2 years of COVID basically, but that first year we competed with Megan Allen. She qualified. And then last year we had a team qualify also, and they ended up not being able to go for financial reasons, which is really disappointing. And then this year I am sure that we're going to have some qualify for national. So we're really excited about that. And this is our last slide. This is just kind of telling you how serious of a activity that this is and what we were able to do. So you guys, Barry Bush, should talk about this. She ran it a lot too.
Okay. All right. So this was the topic that she was talking about earlier, where we're gonna have it here in Garden. She was very stressed about it.
I was very stressed about it.
Got a lot of it, yeah.
A lot of planning that went a little bit to waste, but
We'll use it all again
we'll
next
use
year.
it all again next year. And we've already gotten a lot figured out.
Mhm.
We have decided to plan ahead this year, this coming year. We're just excited about how it's
Mhm.
all gonna play out.
This is going to be a real life conference. We're
Yeah.
going to have it at Garden City Community College. Hopefully we've talked to them a little bit in advance about it, and they're pretty sure they'll have time. This logo that doesn't look quite right on that screen was designed by one of our students from scratch. So they were able to do, a lot of interaction with technology and stuff like that to be able to do it. Embrace diversity. It took us forever to come up with the topic and what it was going to be and what values they had. But we thought that for a Western Regional Conference, especially one held in Garden City, that embrace diversity was the perfect first. And then we're going to take care of the strands and get the speakers and judges and all that. So we are very excited, and that's happening this next year. Also, we wanted to say we have thank you cards for you guys from Garden, from the GCEA and Educators Rising combined. They have been supportive of us and helped us. GCEA has given us money to get our people officially into Educators Rising. It costs $10 to be an official member. And so they've been helping with us. And since then, we've been working together a lot with different things, like you saw us together talking to the mayor and stuff like that. And so we just, since we were speaking and they wanted to do something for you, we decided to join forces. So we have this for you. I'll let you guys. You guys have any, do you do questions? I don't.
Yeah. Questions, comments?
I have a
Yeah.
question. So during your presentation, you said you took 45 students to regional. How many total students are in the organization?
So we had, it was basically 50 54-ish, I think, yeah. Not everybody in my orientation classes joins it. I have the second level join it because it's one of our career tech ed standards that you join a professional organization of some kind. So they are strongly encouraged to join, but they don't have to join and pay. They can just be members at our local chapter. So all of them are, but most of those guys are active, and then several more from the orientation from the first level class. And then people don't have to be in my classes to be in the organization.
Three, not in.
Yeah, right now, which is the first year we've had like we've advertised to people not in my class. The only thing is they make us through their organization to be able to compete. You have to have been in a teaching class, early childhood or K-12. And so that's a little bit of a barrier because those people that join that are freshmen, because I don't have a freshman level class, they're not able to compete, but they can get into my classes later if they want to. Yeah, so 55-ish, and it's the most we've had ever.
So this hosting the regional conference, what is your expectations of attendance and that?
I would bet, especially because we proved that our students will be there. I would bet we'll have about 125.
How many schools does that?
It depends. It's one useful thing is we're having it on a different weekend than when Wichita does. So if there's schools that are around that area that aren't able to attend that weekend for whatever reason, they'll be able to come to ours instead or go to the Kansas City one instead. But Dodge is going to come, Hayes is going to come, Liberal's going to come. I think those are the ones that like confirmed so far. But yeah, yep. Well, confirmed as much as you can a year in advance, but you know what I mean.
Many questions. So they do 1.5 hours per day, Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday. Is that the entire semester, or how many weeks long?
Yeah, so it turns out to be about 4 to 5 weeks per placement, depends on if they're wanting to squeeze that fourth one in, but they'll be at one placement for about 4 weeks. So they'll go for 16 days, at least, and to each placement. So yeah, so they're out there, they're with teachers, like they get a real good relationship with teachers, and the teachers that they work with end up being like their references for things later on, and they stay in touch. It's wonderful.
Do all of our buildings participate? Do the students have access to all of the?
Yep, I've never had a building that said that they weren't interested. With COVID, it got a little bit tricky, and there were some people that were more comfortable and some people that said, we just don't want to deal with it right now. But the college's internship classes continued through COVID, and so we followed their lead because I'm a college class too. And we did that, but that was the only time we ever had any hesitation. I try to contact the principals first, but also I really want to get teachers that want to do it. I don't want principals assigning teachers to do this because you have to want it to have a good relationship with the students in your classroom all the time. So there's some teachers that just every time it comes up, they want to do it and the principals know in advance. And then sometimes the principals kind of want to spread it around and give the teachers different experiences and stuff like that. So we kind of leave it up to the building principals which way they want to do it.
And so you mentioned the junior college program as well.
Yep.
Are they part of this program, or is this strictly for high school students?
So Educators Rising, I'm actually confused on this recently. I thought I knew. So there's another organization at the college level. Do you happen to know what it is?
Aspiring educators.
Aspiring Educators. And so that's the one that is done like in Wichita, I know. And it's related. And so they are able to actually join and compete. We can have college competitions at our regionals if we wanted to. Like we could have at a college level. So they haven't started it here as far as I know, but Layla Martinez just took over the teaching and early childhood. So she's the one that I'm working with now. And so we can work with them to get a chapter started for them. And that reminded me of something else, but I don't remember what. But yes. And through our pathway, we've been working with the college to restart the early childhood associate's degree program, which we'd had it and it had gone away. And now we have a Cert A worth, which is about 15 hours worth, and we're building it back up to an associate's so that people not only would be able to get an associate's in education and then go get their 4-year degree, but they could get an associate's in early childhood also. Yep.
And I just have one last question about the timing. So you said you don't have any freshman classes.
Yes.
And so does the shadowing begin in sophomore year, junior? Like,
Yeah. So with Educators Rising, thank goodness I love this freedom of this because this is a student leadership organization. I sort of have the ability to let people have those experiences through the organization, through the club. So they're not having to wait to get to my classes. So I have a student who's a freshman who's very, very interested. And we talk, what's your actual interest? Let's go get you with a teacher, and they can do full day or half day shadows, or go, just a couple hours if they have a couple hours, and kind of see and get interested in that first. And we can do that through the organization, even though they're not taking my class, so they can't officially compete yet. But we do it as an activity from the organization. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any statistics on the percentage of students that go through the program? And
I am so sorry I didn't put that together. Yes, I thought about that a bunch. Well, just for one, so this was a low year. COVID messed us up because people who did classes from home weren't able to take the orientation class. So our numbers have been down for the 3 years while we're building it back up. So this year, for the 3rd level class, the internship class, we had 5 students in the K-12 class. And of those 5, 3 of them are pairs in the district now. They graduated at semester and they're pairs in the district right now. And so that's pretty common. I had multiple, I need to go back. And it's hard to keep track of everybody once they're gone if they're not on social media, which a lot of my people aren't on social media, especially my boys that go through my program. But several people that went through and went to Wichita State to be teachers, actually, like 3 of the ones I'm thinking of went to Wichita State. We have a whited child who went through it and is working in the school district right now. And he was one of the first ones before I started, my predecessor started. He's one of the first ones that went through the program all the way. So yeah, I will remind me, email me, and I will get you numbers because I want to make sure that I have that record somewhere put together.
Thank you for coming to present. I didn't know much about your program at all, so I appreciate that
Glad.
you coming in.
Yep, glad that we were able to come in and talk. Thanks for letting us come, inviting us.
Thank you. It sounds like you're
Thank
really
you.
building up that program.
Yep.
So I'm excited about the post-COVID,
Yes,
rebuild. So that's
yes,
great.
yes, it's been great. Yep, bigger and bigger, bigger and better every year. And seriously, this class that I've had, this is the combination of them, the most amazing classes that I've had for just they're like, here's a problem that we see. What should we do about it? We'll fix it. And then they just spend their time planning a conference or whatever. It's amazing. They're great. Okay. Missing one. What? No, there's 7. Oh, Dr. Dominguez on the end is our superintendent, so he's not. Yes, absolutely. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for coming though.
Absolutely. Well done. Yeah.
Pretty excited. Good job.
Yeah, thank you so much.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Thank you.
Just reiterate.
Association. As we transition, I just want to give a little brief kind of history and kind of a why before we turn it over to Mr. Deloach and his team from Gertrude Walker. But as we transitioned over the summer, we wrote what was called WIGs, or wildly important goals. And as a district, we wrote 2 literacy goals. And so as we went through the first semester, as we thought, we really want to take the opportunity just to spotlight a school each month. So each month we're going to bring to you a different building. They're really just going to focus on how they're using the WIGs and some of the work that we're doing with the new teacher project to increase literacy within their building and some of the bright spots that they have. So each month, in addition to the regular building reports, we're going to just do a little bit of a focus. And that's why you'll see it called, I think tonight it's called the Wildly Important Goal Spotlight. Maybe in the future, it may just say WIG Spotlight to help just kind of abbreviate that a little bit. But so, when we say WIG Spotlight, it's not about me actually getting some hair sometime. It's about the kids or Mr. Deloach.
I thought about wearing one, but
We have the same barber. But make sure we get the opportunity to share some of the great stuff going on in the classroom. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Deloach and his team.
okay, I'll introduce everybody over here. We're going to airplay. I apologize if some of it's cut off, but I'll read it from here. So with me, I have our instructional coach, Lorena Madera, I have our third grade team, Mrs. Ann Copper and Mrs. Lee Divert. And I have our second grade team, Mrs. Shiloh and Mrs. Mosier. And I feel real fortunate to be here to present some highlights of what we're doing at Gertrude Walker. We have a lot of highlights. We could take the whole night up for you, but we're gonna highlight a couple tonight. And so up here, Jason mentioned WIGs. And so up at the top, you have the district WIGs, and it says by 2023, 80% grade K second grade students will meet or exceed their growth goal. And then on the bottom one, it's increased number of classes demonstrating authentic engagement. And so we took that and our Gertrude Walker WIGs, we aligned to the district goals, which the first one there is K4, 100% of students either meeting their target score or meeting growth if they're high risk or at college pathway. And then the second one is that all students will authentically engage by reading, writing, speaking, or listening, and defending answers, citing evidence, speaking or orally, using grade level appropriate text. And that second one is really what we're highlighting today. And with the work with district leadership and TMPT, it really has given us a focus and a drive to do some of this work. So here are A reading scores through FastBridge. And so A reading is comprehension. It assesses a lot. For tonight, we're focusing on that A reading and comprehension as it ties to our instructional work with TMPT and the classrooms. So if you can look, just glancing at it, second and third grade, it's over the last 5 years, there's a drop or stagnant growth, or we didn't really grow at all. And then this year in 22-23, from fall second grade, 47% went to 58%, and that student's on track. And for third grade, we went from 52% to 60% of students on track. And we still have a lot of work to do, but that's a lot of growth in a semester for FastBridge A reading. And so I think we're really on track to get there. So what we've done, and Lorena, if you'd like to share too, just on what we've experienced with our training and through district leadership, we got to do a lot of work together as principals and instructional coaches around instructional strategies that are highly effective. And those instructional strategies really focus on getting students able to critically think with text and go through a text and be able to answer those questions. And so what you see up here is one of the things that we've been working on through that district PD and through our work with teachers. And it's called the close read, and they have a first read, second read, and third read. And by the end of that third read, you're really looking for what's called an exemplar response that you want students to get to and able to answer questions about that text and really deep meaning and critical thinking. And so what we started on, here's a list of some of the lead measures that lead up to our goals or our lag measures. So we really tried to narrow down steps, things we could focus on each week until we got there to move and keep moving us towards our lag measures. And we did a lot of work with that through TMPT again and with our district leadership. And Lorena and I meet once a week, and they're called our WIG meetings. And we go over this and we look at this data. Each one of these questions is tied to a form where we can go into classrooms and check whether we see this happening or not, which leads to professional development in the school. It leads to conversations during PLCs. Did you want to?
Yeah,
share
coaching, coaching sessions with teachers one-on-one sometimes, depending on where we see, once we've gathered that data and where we see the need, we might, I might take on a teacher and just do some coaching sessions too. So it has been great. We have had great support through the training. getting us to go through the training ourselves, like working with us coaches and principals. So we have then been able to take that into our PLCs, our professional learning communities with our teachers. And then write these lead measures for them to follow and then be able to track that with the forms that we have. And then once we feel like we've met that lead measure, then we move on to working on something else.
So what we're moving towards is that exemplar response in reading. And each classroom, we're all working on those components, but we're going back to get really, really good at each one. So at first we were just focusing on having essential questions posted and referenced during lessons. And now we're moving towards really getting good at identifying passages and sections to get what it's called a gist statement. It's really the main idea or what the story is about, to get a really good understanding. Okay, I know what this story is about, to be able to move on to more text-dependent questions and understanding more about the text. And so that is currently what we're working on now. And then our next lead measure, which I put in there. So once we've got those gist statements, we've got all of our classrooms working towards that, then we'll move on to our next one, which is really focusing on those questions, those text-dependent questions that are aligned to our essential questions to help them keep moving towards being able to answer that question. So I have a few examples to show you here. So here's an example of some essential questions posted and what we were looking for initially. And we were looking for them being referenced. And this is a picture from our 3rd grade classroom. And then we have an example of a page of work, which is kind of hard to see. And I don't know if you're able to read the essential question or not, but it's what is the value of innovation? So that's really the driving question. And then in this text, they're reading about Alexander Graham Bell. And then Leanne, would you like to share what's going on here?
Yeah, we're working on our technology unit, and we are trying to tie our essential question into what they're reading and how they're learning and connecting it to their experiences. And like he said, we've been trying to write some gist statements, which is basically the main idea. It's really hard for probably 2nd grade, but 3rd grade too, to pick that out always. And so we do the 3 reads as a strategy, and we work with partners. And this here was, we put AGB, Alexander Graham Bell, because I thought, well, I don't want to push him to write too much, you know. And we were writing the gist statement basically for that. The circles that you see are one of our reads that they went through to circle words that they may not be familiar with or know, and then we have a discussion about it.
Then here's a 2nd grade example for writing. Can you see it? You want to come up and look here?
So this is one of my more advanced 2nd graders, I should point out.
Yeah.
To go from the 3rd grade to this guy. But this was from one of our earlier units. And it was more about characters and how they overcome problems. But this was one that we did more towards the end of the story, and they're kind of trying to tell us the answer to more focus or text-dependent questions that we came up with. And one of our big focuses is that they need to go back and cite evidence in the story. So you can see, like up in here, he's gone in and he's, pulled lines out of the stories and put quotation marks. Talked about why this character can't survive in the desert. So he really had to justify his answer. And this kid does a really good job of that.
What's he say at the bottom there? What did he say? He said, and that's my evidence. All right. So this is another example of one of our 2nd grade classrooms, Ms. Shiloh. And so she likes to post her essential questions and text-dependent questions up on chart paper. I'll let her explain what you see here.
So this first example here is the unit essential question. And so that's always posted in my classroom each week as we go through our units, these large sticky notes, the black text is things that they can reference that ties back to the question, things that they've learned. The red is any questions that they have about the unit that hasn't been answered yet. So we keep that up so they can always kind of keep that in the back of their mind because we do these units for 3 weeks. And so it's trying to retain all that information. We'll go and do these large sticky notes on our day 5s. And it just provides a really good review to kind of tie all of those stories that we've read through the week. This other part is I call them my focus questions. They're my text dependent questions. As we go through stories, I add the information as the students answer different questions about the text. Former art teacher, I enjoy drawing pictures. Inside the little magnifying glass is the words that they did not know. And so I make sure to write it in there. So if they need to add it to their dictionaries, they can, and it's always referenced there. So if they need to go back and say, oh yeah, I remember we talked about that word, it's always up there for them. And we have a third example here where we kind of listed characteristics of the different characters and the problem. But all of this that goes on my chart is directly pulled from the conversations that the students have. I was very lucky to be able to do the TNTP training both summers that it has been offered here in Garden City. And so I really have implemented our 3 reads. And I've made sure that our students are having conversations with each other, making sure that my opinion isn't the focus, and really making sure that they have the conversations and kind of make their own conclusions. And these charts really just provide kind of a reference because some of these stories will last the whole week. This is an example of my student work. This first page, well, I guess it's the second page over here, is the unit question being answered before we start the unit. So you can see this is what the student had to say about what we can learn when we face problems, which is to not do it again. That's what she had to say about that. And then after the unit is finished, we revisit that question and I make sure that the students reference the text to support whatever their opinion is. And typically this is a very typical kind of comparison as far as like what their opinions are before we engage in our text versus after. And they'll reference text to back up whatever their opinion is.
I do want to add to that through all this process and all these lead measures, that has helped us and is helping us to that district WIG that we have with student engagement, because they are engaging the kiddos. And we have really worked on shifting the cognitive load from the teacher doing all the work to the student. So they have done an awesome job of working on that and putting the load on the kids and having them do the thinking, coming up with the answers and the brainstorming and just everything. So it's really fabulous to go in their classrooms and see that happen with that engagement.
Questions?
I have some.
Yeah.
So what is a reading? What does that mean when you say a reading and we're looking at a reading?
So A reading is part of the Fast Bridge assessments that we give as a district. And A reading is really that comprehension piece that puts it all together. And so in Fast Bridge, they'll test phonics and fluency, they'll test phonemic awareness. There'll be different types of assessments through K4, different assessments that kindergartens will take and first grades will take, but you can look at all that together and look at data over, well, in this case, 5 years to see if there's been any change or progress. So it's a really good thing to look at to see if we're headed in the right direction or not.
So just to make sure I have it right, so a reading is like it's like all of those different components that you talked about. It's like the score mix, or it's most.
It's separate. It's separate from,
okay,
but
it's the
in
comprehension
order to
piece.
get to that A reading comprehension, you really need your phonics and fluency. You really need your phonemic awareness. And so that A reading, I think, really highlights, if we can have growth in that A reading, it highlights that we're doing things well, especially in terms of comprehending text and understanding text. But then we can also go back and look at things like phonics and phonemic awareness to see if there's anything getting in the way to keep increasing that score. Because they're still gonna, especially in second grade, there's still gonna be areas of phonics that we need to focus on. They do phonics every day. They do phonemic awareness every day. There's still those components that we need to work on too, to make sure that that A reading score keeps increasing as well.
And then I just have one other question. And I can't really remember because 7 years, there's a lot of information. I feel like Gertrude Walker was actually one of the schools that has the most languages spoken at one time. So how do you deal with those language barriers? It seems like with so many maybe different languages, even in one classroom, what does that look like?
Well, we do, and Lee, you may know off the top of your head, I know you sent an email earlier in the year about how many languages that were spoken.
It's around 12.
So, and I
A
should.
lot less than high school.
Yeah, a lot less, but a lot. And Ann and Lee also serve as our interventionist. And they were very willing to jump in and help. So they each teach third grade halftime. They still are on that interventionist role too. So we utilize them as interventionists too. And we do have interventions throughout the day to help meet those needs. But I think in terms of this and giving that core instruction, making sure that those students are part of that core instruction too. And while we're working on all the other things to help get them caught up, it's really important to expose them to this text, to expose them to this questioning and this discussion. And they're all involved in partner sharing and talking to each other, because I think that's just going to help grow faster too. Yeah.
Quick question. So you're basically just said that what you try to do is in interventions is not have those interventions during that key time.
Yes.
So, and that's always the challenge I know for a classroom teacher and interventionist is how do you balance what the student needs? And that's sort of it's exciting what you're doing. And so I know there's real success. You had examples there of outstanding work. But there's always that challenge of diversity of students within your classroom. And so I think the answer that I was looking for, you just gave me was that, well, how do you deal with some of those kids that are way behind? And well, it's the interventionist, is that right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it takes all of us, and they really help us focus on students that need a little extra work. And our teachers are involved in that work this year as well, and really understanding where every student is at. And our teachers will help group those interventions to make sure we have the right groups. But then, like I said, I set out at the beginning of the year, just making sure that our core instruction, math and reading was not interrupted. And it is a challenge because there are a lot of needs, but we set that as a goal and worked around that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for that focus time. That was very informative.
Draw Porta.
Thank you, Beth.
Okay. Well, thank you, guys. I'm back with our discussion of the student internship program that we're looking at trying to implement. Basically, just wanted to, I did visit again with our teacher reps with Ron and Russ after our meeting last time, I guess in December. And, they were kind of on the same kind of right with you, Dana, when they're talking about that $10 that we're proposing as far as paying our student interns. So in the board packet that I put out to y'all this time, I kind of reduced that down to 8, just so that we can do some compensation for our seniors that to come in and help at the different schools with the, reading with kids and assisting in math facts and so forth like that. Jackie, you asked that you kind of want to hear from the principals. So I have Jill here at the elementary. Come on up, Jill. Don't be shy. Come on. You go first. And I also brought Steve in because I think one of the other questions was why the students can't do this for credit or something like that. So I want Mr. Norby to kind of visit with you a little bit about the scheduling and so forth like that. And I loved Janet's program and talking about they're already preparing our kids for this internship, which is great. We did have 37 seniors that showed interest in this program. And I talked to Jeanette just now, she has 10 seniors that are in her program. So that kind of tells us that there's 27, my math correct, 27 that are outside that program that might be interested in getting some type of internship with our school district. So Jill, I'm gonna go ahead and turn over and let
I
you.
thought we were just answering questions.
Well, no, just kind of tell me, kind of what needs you see there at the elementary level and how you think this program will
Yes.
assist your teachers.
Okay. Three things. I think that first of all, it fills a need for us. We have a lot of para positions open and it fills a need for our district by being able to have these interns, whether it's half-time, full-time, a couple hours a day. I currently hired a para that is taking some college classes at the JUCO where she's gone for a couple hours. We're happy to have her minus a few hours a day. Secondly, it fills a need for them. It gives them meaningful work experience and gives them references. And thirdly, it gives us the opportunity, which I think is the most important thing, to be in front of them and talk about the importance of education, of what we do every day. It gives us the opportunity to have them in the classrooms. It gives us the opportunity to show them what a speech therapist does, what an occupational therapist does, so that down the road, that may be a career path that they want to follow. Talking about the TEP program, if they become a para, that's something that they could jump into quickly and get their education paid for, hopefully. So it gives us just an opportunity to be in their ear. And I think the quicker we can get them, I've worked with Jeanette and had lots of kids come to Florence Wilson, mainly I think because of the proximity to the high school. And I would love to have all of them in my building working. I know one of them that was here just last semester got hired at VO, which I was thrilled about. So I think it's just a great opportunity for us to catch them while they're young. So questions?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Gotta ask you a question.
Yeah.
Stump the speaker. So there's a lot going on at your school, every school. And we're in an interesting time where we're short on staff. Kids have special needs from the standpoint of we had coming off of COVID and we're trying to make sure everybody gets to where we want them to get to as far as grade appropriate learning. There's a lot for you as a principal to balance. So I guess my quick question is, how's that working to tuck all these kids in and that community? Do you have a para to help you coordinate that? Or I don't know how you do it all, I guess is how do you do it all?
I think I rely on the people that are around me a lot. The teachers that I work with,
Okay.
My special ed staff, my intervention staff would be relied on for training. Department heads for training with some of these newer staff. So.
Well, it's exciting as long as you can do it. It sounds like you have a heart for it. That's fabulous.
It's definitely hiring a strong team, so. Other questions? I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's a great opportunity for us. And I think it's a great opportunity for the young people in our community. So.
You did great. Appreciate you. Okay, Steve, step up.
Well, when Dr. Alcorta and Mrs. Lucas, Darlene Lucas, brought this to us at the high school, we thought this would be a great opportunity for our kids for a lot of reasons. The idea about should we just do it all for credit? We are already doing some things with kids for credit through Jeanette's program. Work-based learning may not apply to all the kids who might be interested in this. In order to give work-based learning credit, it's really supposed to have some kind of a tie to the student's plan of study. Is this, and So we can't just say, you're in ag and ag construction, and so we're gonna give you work-based learning to go help in an elementary school or something like that. We're not really supposed to do this. Plus, credit-based, the kids we were talking about were the kids that were second semester seniors. They may have a shortened schedule. And so the credit may or may not mean anything to them. Whereas a couple bucks may do that. I know it's something that we already do employ students in the district or have employed students in the district to help out, especially during the summers with technology. There'll be kids around interning, for lack of a better word. They're in working, they're setting up Wi-Fi's, they're putting up all of our Apple TVs. When we got them through the high school, those were installed by kids. And so it's something we've already kind of been doing. With the new graduation requirements, some kind of a work-based experience is going to be a significant part of that. Mr. Johnson and I, we've been talking about that and kind of planning in 2 years, our current 7th graders, when they hit high school, some kind of outside work experience, they call it a post-secondary asset, it's going to be required. And so now I'm going to different businesses in the chamber and all these places. And as one of the largest employers in Phoenix County, if we're not going to take our students, why are they? So I think it's something that works, as Mrs. Regal said, it works for the kids. It works for the buildings that need a couple extra hands here or there. And you had how many kids that were interested again?
37.
37 of them. It's not going to solve our staffing issues, but for a teacher, for a building, for a principal, have an extra hand on the playground, have an extra hand in the classroom, it may make a difference right now when we're having staffing difficulties. So, my team and I were really, really for it for those reasons. We see that some kind of post-secondary outside of the building work experience is going to be really big for us. These kids probably aren't going to be doing a lot of work at the high school, but we're still supportive of doing that because we know with the elementaries and intermediates, they could use a couple pairs of hands, even if it's at the end of the day helping kids line up at the bus. A couple pairs of eyes and hands, grade some papers or something. So those are kind of the reasons that we thought it'd be a positive idea when they brought it to us. And I was really surprised that we had that many students who are interested. We just kind of brought it up in a meeting of the seniors. Hey, you're getting ready to graduate. Don't forget to do this. And I was really happy with the fact that so many kids were interested in wanting to do something like that.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You talked about the work-based experience requirement that's gonna come up.
Yeah.
How will this fall into that? I mean, because can
If
they be
education-
hired and paid for that, or is it more
Yeah.
just an internship?
You can be, to give credit, it's got to be attached to their, or it's supposed to be attached somewhere to their individual plan of study. To say that I'm extending my education to my plan of study, and so I get credit for this. Work-based learning, kids can go out, have jobs, and get credit if they want to. The credit may just not apply to everybody. It may not be an enticing factor to everybody. It is to the kids in Jeanette's program. It is to a lot of other kids that are juniors that might be interested in doing this. They might be really interested in doing it for the credit, maybe not for the money. Kids that are second semester seniors, we might be able to capture them. The credit may not be as important to them, but a couple bucks might be. Yeah.
So this is only available for second semester senior year?
Correct. And it's a pilot program, and that's our focus is right now.
So, Ms. Turpin, your program, those internships are part of the class?
Yes.
Okay, so they're doing that for credit,
Yes.
and that can start as a sophomore?
The job shadows can start, the internship where they're going every day, that's for their 3rd year, but usually is their senior year. Very rarely do they take 2 classes at the same time, doing the junior, but usually it's their senior. And they're doing like reflections with that. They're doing a lot of assignments along with that. So they're interacting, but they're also doing that extra assignment piece.
So I heard you mention that you could do work-based learning where they go and get a job somewhere and also get credit for that. Could a program like this be coupled with that so that those internships in the educator rising program could be paid?
Yeah, all of both of my second level classes, the people that will be seniors next year, said that they would absolutely do this.
Yeah, absolutely. We
Like all
could
35
fold them together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not part of his original proposal.
Yep, so they'll go to my class for 2 hours and then they would stay at their placement or they would go to a different school. They would be happy to do that. A lot of interest.
And then what is the reason this is only for second semester? Or is that just, we don't have seniors they don't have that afternoon opportunity to be finished by noon?
In the fall, we require all kids to have full schedules in the fall to ensure that they've got the credits they need to graduate, to do all of those. In the second semester seniors, those are the ones with more open time in their schedule where they can go and take extra classes out at the college, go get a job. They have, all the students participating in extracurricular activities have to maintain at least 5 classes. Most of those kids try to get them in the morning if they can. So if they took a 0 hour, first, second, third, fourth, some of those kids are done at 11:30 and would look forward to going to help out at an elementary school for the afternoon before they had to come back to school for an activity or something like that. Yeah. Yep.
I just want to clarify a couple of things too. I have a question. So you talked about the post-secondary work experience versus the potential work-based requirement that might be coming up. So when you talked about the work-based requirement, that has to be connected with their field of study, correct? Is that the right term?
Yeah, to give credit for the class called work-based learning, it should be an expansion on what they're. So if you have a student in ag construction, and that was in their plan of study and they've taken courses in it and they want to go get a job at the co-op or something like that, we could give them credit for doing that in work-based learning. Now that student may or may not then be eligible through work-based learning to go work in an elementary school for credit.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, but the post-secondary work experience is
Yeah.
essentially just students that have jobs.
Yeah, going
Outside
out, making a connection with someone outside of the school so that they have a name and a reference. When they leave high school, they leave with somebody who can vouch for them besides, I showed up, I attended, I passed my tests, and I have a piece of paper. I have that and the name of an employer and somebody that I can put on a resume and some kind of work experience that says I'm reliable and I can show up and I can complete my tasks and those kind of things. Yeah.
So that's just a job essentially
Yep.
outside of school.
Yep.
And they don't get any credit for that, right? Or is it part of any kind of job shadowing or?
It
internship
can be.
program?
It can be, it doesn't have to be. There are also other ways to get that work-based experience. It's not just, or post-secondary experience is not just a job. It could be logging a certain number of hours as a volunteer at an organization. You go volunteer at the animal shelter, a certain number of, be a part of civic organizations. So it's something extracurricular outside of the high school setting where you can make a connection with someone from the community and have that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a job. It can be a job.
Okay, so one of the questions that we asked the last meeting when this was brought up was what current internships or like the on-site work-based, some of these programs that you're talking about, what are some that currently exist at the high school? And are those, where do they fall in the work-based learning or both, or like
Yeah,
what
most of
currently
them.
exists? What does that look like?
Yeah, most of them are through work-based learning. Some of them, like in the health fields, if you take a course called Health Career Rotations, you go do an internship with someone in town. Maybe it's someone at St. Catherine's, maybe it's someone at Siena, maybe it's somebody at Plaza. You would go and take a class, basically interning and shadowing there, but it's only for those students in health careers. So most of our internships that we have right now are, if they're not in a program like Jeanette's, or a program like the health courses, then those are primarily work-based learning kind of internships that we have now. We know we need to expand it because of the incoming graduation changes and the graduation requirements. We've got to really get on expanding those in the next couple of years, which is why I went with Dr. Dominguez and talked to the employers at the chamber. We held CTE meetings last Tuesday at the high school, getting businesses coming in with our career and tech programs, trying to get more folks interested in taking on our students as potential work-based learning or as potential interns and shadowing. We know we've got to really get expanding on that in the next couple of years.
And when you're going out to visit with those businesses, are you asking them to provide internships or shadow opportunities with pay?
Whatever applies for them. If pay isn't, or in a job for a student isn't necessarily what they have and what they can offer, what works for them in their business, then okay, but how about an opportunity for a student to shadow for a while? How about, we'll take honestly right now at this point about anything that we can get. To try to, because we know that we're kind of behind the ball with that. Right now, most of them outside of Jeanette's program are paid.
All of the internship
Our
programs?
work-based learning, other than Jeanette's program and the one at Sienna and the hospital, the health career rotations, they're all work-based learning. They're all paid.
And would you know on hand, like, are they paid minimum wage? What does that pay look like? And how many hours do students put into those?
Well, it varies on the number of hours. I don't know that. I know that right now, the students essentially have to go find their own jobs. And then apply for work-based learning. So what we know is if every student's going to have to be involved in some kind of post-secondary thing, or most of them, we need to get on the stick as far as helping some of them find some sources. But right now, the way we have it set, the students find their own jobs. Yeah.
Any questions?
Ms. Turpin, just since somebody already asked you another question, would your students currently do I mean, obviously you spoke with us. Does this deter your students, or does it encourage them to then have an expectation of pay to do these? Do you think it changes the mentality, like with your other students that may not get paid, if it's only your seniors that get paid to do the same thing?
No, I don't think so. They're interested in the experiences for sure, 100%. And they know their abilities and they know that they're not, like the younger ones know that they're not ready to go in and start getting paid to be there. They want to have the experience beforehand. And like I said, the seniors, I think, would be happy to do both. They're not gonna, I don't think they're gonna feel slighted for doing classwork through, an internship. I don't think they're gonna feel like they're being slighted there, but also they have a lot to offer. And I think that they would want to get in those positions because it's what they love to do, and then be able to actually make money while they're doing what they love and expanding on their career opportunities and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't think it would offend anybody in my programs.
And then I guess that would be my other question, maybe for Dr. Alcorta, because I'm not sure that you would be. So one of the concerns that was brought up in the last meeting as well was how this would, affect paras that were already in there. And I know that you lowered the cost. I'm not sure how you came up with that number, but did you do any kind of survey? Did you talk to paras or any other staff where we kind of brought up that this might, I don't want to say necessarily affect morale. I don't know if that's too big of a word, but did you reach out and ask?
I reach out to pairs. Like I said, I talked to Russ and Ron just kind of at the end of that meeting the other day and just kind of saying, hey, what do y'all think? I know you asked Ron about, would teachers want this or not? And, I think with the principals that the answer is yes, that they would want that extra assistance and extra help. But besides visiting with them as far as, and the reason why I came up with the $8 is that, like your main concern was that the $10 was too close to $11.70 that we give our current paras right now. So, we went down a couple of dollars just to, I did want to pay a little bit more than minimum wage. I mean, because realistically, like Randy was talking about that last meeting, they can go to Mickey D's and get well over what we're offering here. And so, and I understand, I mean, I've been in the education business for 31 years. I know you're not going to get rich doing it, but I do feel like, and I visited with Ron about this too, that we do need to increase our compensation and especially our market analysis that we're looking at trying to do with our salary study just to see what our baseline is, not only for, not necessarily for teachers, but for, you know, our custodial staff, our food service, our transportation. I mean, you know, we need to be competitive. Does that answer your question? Okay.
How do we propose to pay for this?
Well, we currently have a lot of paraprofessional positions that are vacated right now that aren't. I mean, the money's there. Well, you know, we're running 55 teachers short. I mean, and when I say 55 teachers short, because I have 55 long-term subs. And so, you know, they're not getting paid teacher salary. Although we are encouraging them, you know, and, you know, we met with all our long-term subs and just brought in some colleges and just said, hey, what can we do to help you, you know, become a teacher and get that certification? So we're working. I mean, I'm excited about this, that you know, Darlene and Afton kind of came up with this idea as far as working with our kids, because I think that that's a great baseline getting down there with our kids. But then also, we got to grow our own. I mean, we have long-term subsidy, we have paras here. We need to help those folks get to where they want to be and help them with their education as well. Yes,
That
ma'am.
money is coming from basically the same budget as what you would be paying your paras.
Right. That's there already.
So this pilot is for this this semester. That we
Yeah, if we can get it going, it'd be great to get it for this semester.
And at the end of this semester, you would report back to us, give us a report on how it went. And
We can, we definitely can do that. You know, we can get the, you know, some of our principals back up here. I know that Tracy, she was gonna be here, but she's sick today and you know, she wants to put a basically a training with all those kids before they even step foot in the classroom. So kind of maybe basing a little bit of the knowledge and stuff, we can even talk to Jeanette as far as kind of some of the baseline things that we feel like they need to know before they even step in foot in the classroom. And my principals are going to know that. And, you know, the coaches that Jill talked about. I mean, you know, we do want our kids to be successful. We want this to be a good taste in our kids' mouths that, hey, you know what? Education might be where I want to go. Because like I said, these kids that right now are interested are not necessarily in the education track.
yeah, if we were to implement this, I would like to see a presentation at the end of the semester. And then a discussion about how you want to, if you want to propose it again next year, or a program based off this pilot.
Sounds good.
Any other questions or comments or direction on where we want to go?
Good job, pretty exciting. Thank you for the presentation.
Hey, appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Norby.
Thank you,
Yeah.
I would, I'd make a motion that we approve this program as written. With one exception, I changed the pay back to $10 an hour. And then I like, when Andy said, reevaluate the program after it's, after the semester. I agree with a lot of things said about, you know, we're out in the community trying to, recruit people to hire our students and that. And here we are, the largest employer in the town, and we don't do that. So, and I think it's I support the grow your own. 100%. We all win with that. As far as the compensation with the paras and that, I think we all know that there's a compensation study coming, and I suspect that there are changes that will be made based on that. So that doesn't scare me. I'm not worried about that. And I think it's good. The passion's there, and you know what Jeanette said, the programs are there, and I think it's about.
I think it offers our students that are involved in extracurricular activities a unique niche where they can earn some money before they have to come back to practice or whatever their activity may be. So I think it's a wonderful program. You have people that want to work. I think we should allow them to work, get some experience, and pay them for doing so. So I think it's a great program.
You made a motion.
Yes.
Yeah, with the change though, from the, what's on, yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay. I was afraid I missed it while I was taking notes. Any other discussion? Go ahead. I just have a question that. Right in front of me. I can't find it. That I just thought of, through the hiring process, will it be the same process as if you're hiring a regular district employee?
Yes, ma'am.
So the
They have to go through
application
the background check and all that kind of stuff.
That's my question.
No, I mean, just a discussion piece. I mean, I think it's a fantastic program too, but I can't in good conscience approve it with a $10 pay with when our paras only make $11.70, I believe was the number that you gave out for the last presentation. I mean, that's just, it doesn't bode well with me, but obviously, if you all do, that's fine. I just want to put that out there.
No, I think that's a good point. Curious about. I guess their qualifications as a student their qualifications to be hired aren't equal to what our paras are at because they don't have a high school degree, and what are the other requirements for a para to work for the district?
Basically a high school GED. And then the completion of background check. And making sure they have 2 references. Yeah, and then they take a test to parapro.
And that's something the students won't have to take then, because they're to that point yet.
Right. I mean, we will make sure that we do the criminal background check. They'll make sure that they have to fill out an application, so forth. Yes, ma'am.
But paras also participate in professional development and training throughout the year, right? They're expected.
Some,
Um,
they don't go to all the days that the teachers go to, just they go to some.
I think 1 day.
For 1 day.
1 day.
They only attend 1 day of all the in-services and trainings. Good to know.
So I'm in support of the program. At the last meeting, I said I'm in support of it as it was written at the $10 an hour. I think, I do think that I don't want to send the wrong message to our parents about that. So I guess where I'm at right now is I think I wouldn't vote no on the $10 and see, if that were to stop the program from happening. But I do think that putting it in as the $8 as Dr. Alcorta has changed it. In my mind, kind of puts the cart and the horse in the right order. It allows us, it creates some separation in the costs and lets us take the time to do the study, the salary study first. And this is just a pilot program. And if we're going to reevaluate for permanent implementation next year, we could readdress the salary after we've done the other study. So I'm a little on the fence. So
Well, we have a motion on the table right now to approve it at the $10. Okay, so if you have any comments or questions on that, we can vote on that one and then go from there.
So the thought is, if that fails, then we can come back to
Yeah.
the $8 thing. It's interesting. I just want to say that it's very supportive of the program. It's just that question of what's the right entry level. And we gotta pop it up where it needs to be for all the reasons that were discussed. But I think it's a no-brainer at the $8 suggested level. But then maybe very soon it would go up based on what we learned with that compensation study. It's just awkward. I want to award the kids, but I want to award everybody. So I feel awkward about the $10.
And I guess my other thought is that they're working less hours. And I'm assuming than what the full-time paras are.
Yeah.
And I'm on the fence about it though too, so I'm trying to process it in my
I
head,
get
but
it. 'Cause I
why I even consider the $10 there is they are gonna be working less hours. So that's where I can justify paying them more per hour.
Well, and I base that money in myself about the market in town right now. And we can go work at McDonald's for $12 an hour. So we're trying to breed professionals and be a profession. So that's why I support the pay a little bit.
And the the benefit of this versus a fast food place for them is it's gonna work into their school schedule, so they might be willing to take a little less. And the experience, but if education's not their priority at the moment, the ability to work during their, and fit into their school schedule.
So keep in mind too, I mean, it's the big box and chain stores that can offer that dollar amount. Local businesses, or a lot of the smaller, even, I'm thinking entry level, they are at, I shouldn't say at minimum wage, but not much of a minimum.
I think either way, we can't go wrong, which we do have the opportunity to reevaluate it at the end of the semester. I'm glad the principals came and presented. I was worried it would be a program that would be, I didn't want the students coming in and it being, okay, what do I have to find for them to do today? And that's good to hear that that won't be that situation. I think either way, whatever we decide, it would be good. Anything else, or?
All in favor of approving the student internships with the changing it back to the $10 hour pay? Is that the only thing you had in there? Did I forget something?
And the reevaluation.
And the reevaluation at the end of the semester. Please raise your hand.
Real quick, after the semester or after the study?
After the semester, after they complete one semester.
Yeah,
All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, motion passed.
That's one of those you can't hardly be against, even though I'm a little concerned about the $10, but it's a lot of fabulous work and appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And any information you want to give me before the end, I'm interested to see how it's going.
Okay, sure.
Reach out or you reach out.
Sure, no problem.
Nice. Facilities. We enjoyed your talk so much. We wanted you to come back.
Inviting me back.
Yeah.
Colleen's gonna help me this time.
I apologize for my voice. I have a good bout of laryngitis going on, so we're gonna try and make it through this. We'll see how this goes. All right, so when Shane and I started meeting this past summer to start discussing this project, we kind of identified some objectives for the storage facility. So one is a storage location for several departments for the district. So we've identified this location specifically for plant facilities, furniture and equipment, technology, and also our nutrition department. A lot of our schools have very limited storage within those buildings. So oftentimes they're kind of doing jigsaw puzzle pieces around their building. They're moving from one location, offloading some to maintenance, furniture and equipment. We're then taking that, moving it into these storage locations. So there's a lot of moving parts that just kind of cause a lot of time issues with it. So we want to eliminate an ongoing expense for the district. The concept here is to have a one-time expense that will help eliminate the ongoing Connex box expenses that we are acquiring every single month. We want to resourcefully manage our assets. So with that is, there are certain items across the district that we use every couple of years. And during that time, it's always a hassle to find a storage location for those items. So instead of selling, auctioning off, buying new items, our thought process is to have a stockpile of good quality furniture and equipment, desks, teacher desks, student desks, couches, chairs, conference room tables, those types of items in a location. So then when a school does need an item like that, we have a stockpile to utilize, transfer back over to that school to start that process. So we want to efficiently move furniture for auctioning purposes. So we currently auction off furniture and equipment, large, of course, bus items, technology items that have been phased out. So monitors, computers, laptops, iPads, all kinds of items there. And then
Like I said before, the stockpile of quality items to the schools is necessary. For the actual structure, we budgeted $350,000. Shane actually just did this building at Scott City before he left for 310. So he does have that in his previous experience that he has done this building somewhere else before. So history. So our school district did previously have a storage location. The storage building was sold, which resulted ultimately in those annex boxes that then started to be rented. In July of 2022, when Shane and I originally met to discuss this issue, we had 7 annex boxes at that point, and we knew that even then it needed to be addressed. The previous plant facilities director said the exact same thing. We've got to figure out a storage solution for the district because of the amount of items that we have that we move through. As of January 2023, we now have 16 portable storage units. We're about to add a 17th, and our current monthly rental is $6,000 a month.
The building layout. Okay, so just to recap, kind of go through this like I did last month. This would be the north end of the building set out on our property there at the plant facilities service center. North end of the building, our delivery trucks would drive through overhead door on this end. They'd be able to pull all the way through, exit on the south end, which ends up near our warehouse and our forklift equipment. The west side of the building will be outfitted with shelves that handle pallets. We're going to palletize all the furniture that we're going to store for use for the district. So the shelving will be 2 or 3 levels, 16-foot tall sidewall building to handle the pallets. We'll have areas for plant facilities, for furniture. Technology will also have some space to stack their pallets and computers and whatnot. And then we got nutrition or food service at the end, and they've just got storage of items. The east side of the building is where we're going to put our auction items. So as the truck pulls in, the stuff that we know is going to go to auction, we've got an abundance of. We're going to put it on the east side. Purple Wave will come in, they'll take pictures. They'll map it all out. They do their auction. We've got walk-in doors on the east side so the public can come in and bid on or look at and then pick up their items. So it's really kind of an efficiency. Just being able to pull the truck all the way through, unload the auction items on the east side. The stuff that we need stored or we need more of will be stored in the racks on the west side.
Question about that. So the floor will be concrete?
Yes, sir.
What will the depth of the concrete be if you're going to be pulling trucks?
6 inch.
6 inch concrete?
That's the way I estimated it.
And then your shelving on the west side,
Yes.
are those pallet racks?
Yeah, much like a Menards, Home Depot type, those heavy duty racks where you could get, 3 of them, maybe 4 foot high.
And are
That's the thought.
Are they figured into the cost of the building or are they?
They are.
We have 350,000 budgeted for just the building, and then 362,500 for the total cost. So shelves and other items to be included.
What do we store for food service? What would we store there?
When I went back and walked through with Tracy, she's got some salad bars stuff. She's got hot cart parts and pieces that she uses on a kind of a yearly basis to repair some things. Things for coolers, freezers, like that. They're more hardware type items. We're not talking about food. She keeps all that back here.
She's constantly needing space as well, and her warehouse here at ESC. So she's moving some of those items. At Garden City Achieve, we have several areas that technology also uses to help stage their auction items as well. So we're looking at freeing up space there specifically so that they can expand their automotive program. There's something else along the lines at Achieve because Achieve is constantly needing space as well.
This is just an overhead shot of where the building will lay out here near our warehouse. the fluorescent lines. I think this is the water line that comes in. We're gonna put it near the building in case we need it. We'll put a N-grade water hydrant. We're gonna run gas to the building. We're not gonna heat or cool it initially, but it's gonna be there for future purposes. And then our electrical comes in from the north and ties in. And really the only utilities we're gonna have in this building initially is just some LED light fixtures. So few outlets, convenience outlets.
So along with the last presentation that we had, some of the questions kind of came up. Did we talk to other school districts? So what I did is went back and identified 9 other districts that are similarly sized as what we are and reached out to them with some specific questions. So we asked them about do they currently have a storage facility, a warehouse manager? What does their inventory process look like? How frequently do they auction? And what auctioneer they use. So out of the 8 responses that I received from the 9 districts, only 1 district did not have a storage facility or a warehouse manager. They said that they have declining enrollment. So they've identified some spots within their schools to help do some of the storage process there. All do auctions at least yearly or biannually. 5 of the districts use Purple Wave. 1 uses EquipBid, which is in Wichita. 1 uses Craigslist, and 1 does on-site or reverse bids. Most admitted to needing to improve their inventory process and tracking. Most use spreadsheets to track their inventory, and 1 district uses a platform called IIQ. It's an inventory asset management software. So that's something that we're also kind of considering to help us manage kind of the inventory process across the district as well. So went back 10 years, so looked at a decade worth of auction proceeds. Of the items that are on here, we have them identified into 3 different brackets. So plant facilities, technology, and nutrition. So when I went back through all the auction proceeds, I specifically pulled these sales from items that would be stored within these locations. So as you can imagine, we've had a lot more auctions than this, such as buses and other larger equipment items for nutrition. So what I went and did is I took just the proceeds from the sales of the items that would be stored in this location, just so that you have the apples to apples comparison here. So in a decade, it's going to more than pay for the building. The other interesting portion on here that's worth notating, in the district in 2012 to 2013, that time range, used Johnston auctioneers. So they would come pick up the items, move them over to Johnston auctioneer, and then a lot of the proceeds were significantly lower. Once we started utilizing Purple Wave and doing multiple auctions a year, the school district started generating a lot more revenue off of that. We also do have like the mass liquidation that we do for some of our technology items that you'll see kind of come through the board consent agenda, where we sold off, 100 iPads that are an older generation iPad as well. So it does show at least the total of those items over the several years. Nutrition, it was just a small equipment items. I did have some trouble kind of separating some of the revenue amounts just because of the lack of documentation in some of the previous years. So I know that there's more. It's just these were the numbers I could assure were 2 items for auction proceeds.
What is, and you may have mentioned this, but so the last 3 years, we've had a huge jump in the numbers, especially in the technology. What is that?
I think some of it is just going through. So I believe with technology, we used to use a different company, and they've identified new that do mass buys from school districts. So they've started utilizing that process, and they've been able to generate more with going directly to a company instead of auctioning through a third-party auctioneer.
So does it mean that we're still kind of getting rid of the same number of technology devices every year? We're just finding more buyers now and able to somewhere where before we were still getting rid of them, we just weren't able to sell them?
Not able to sell them or sell them on the correct avenue to generate the most amount of money. So there's been some work in some of those areas as well. I'll also say there are holes in the way that we had to go back and manually sift through a lot of these. Some of the documentation is not the greatest, so if I didn't know, I didn't put it on here.
So do you think those higher trends that have happened in the last 2 years are typical of what we're gonna see moving forward? Or was there something causing just a spike in those couple of years?
I know that there was some discussion towards stockpiling more items during the COVID years, and they weren't auctioning the way that they had previously done. So I think you're gonna see a little bit of that, but I'm confident that if we manage these assets well going forward, that we would continue to see the same type of revenues that we've seen the last few years.
You feel if the district comes up with a better inventory plan, you mentioned that on the previous slide where some of the other districts have tracking or platform. You feel that this will be as big an issue if we have a plan in place, actually start managing it, opposed to just needing extra warehouse space because we have an unmanaged system?
Really the way that Shane and I have kind of talked, and we've talked pretty at length with technology as well, we really foresee this working parallel together. So having a storage facility that has the items out in a manageable way that we can go in, we know the condition status, we have space to store, as well as an inventory process and some procedures in place that they will help work together for the district and moving us forward to manage those assets in a more resourceful manner. So really, if we don't have both of those components, it's going to be much harder for us to manage. So it would help us be successful hitting some of those objectives if we have both pieces moving together.
And do you have I mean, this is obviously the plan for the building. Do you have a plan for the, buying, inventorying, repurposing side of this?
Yes.
Yeah, Colleen's actually spearheading.
Spearheading some demos for asset management softwares for the district. There's a lot of options that are out there specifically built for K through 12 education by K through 12 education. So we're working on about 3 different demos with different systems. Our ideal situation is if we have a system that we onboard that can manage plant facilities, can manage technology, can manage furniture and equipment, so that we can pool our resources, have a standard process across the district, and save the money overall for the district. Because if we segment out each entity having their own platform, realistically, we're going to spend a lot more. So price-wise, so far, some of the ones that we are very interested in have pretty low price points that I think will help us move forward. Of course, with all systems, policy and procedure implementation helps that be a little bit more successful. So we're definitely looking at, there's going to be training, there's going to have to be training and then policy implementation with how we move forward.
How is inventory tracking?
Spreadsheets, and then technology has their own system and plant facilities has their own system. So we're already kind of piecemealed off. So we're trying to kind of get us all aligned onto one system.
With the 16 units you have now, how many of those are holding? How much of that is just holding on to inventory that you plan to reuse? Just staging material that you're going to auction.
History is from my guys out in the warehouse that's been there for 40 years. Is telling me that we'll sell it all nearly. That doesn't mean, I was back there today asking the question, how much of this stuff gets back into the schools after a August, September mark. And at least once a week, we're pulling something out of those boxes and taking it into a school, whether it's 3 tables, 6 desks, a chair, a teacher's desk. So they're in and out of those boxes probably once a week at least. And
before we started this process, Shane's staff took pictures of all of the items within all of the Connex boxes and put together a Dropbox and shared out that link. So that went out back to the schools so that they could go through the pictures and then also go out and pull out the items that they wanted back into their schools. So doing some of those pieces and managing it, so will help us overall save the district money. So each spring we do a district-wide furniture and equipment order process. So schools will submit it to a committee reviews it. We have an allocation based on each building, and then we say, okay, you can go back and use the district-wide furniture allocation. This is how much you have to be able to purchase these items for your school. So they'll kind of create an urgency level. So we've had, so some of the history has been schools have requested to buy 25 new student desks. My ideal in this situation is to say, okay, you want 25 new desks. This is how much that we have in our storage facility. We have 25 desks, good condition, elementary style, that we're going to go ahead and move over to you instead of going out and spending $30,000 on brand new desks. Those are the types of mechanisms that we want to start up with this inventory process. I don't really have a way of doing that right now. Or, hey, we need a small desk cart. Okay, well, let me pull up an inventory desk cart, great condition. Hey, Shane, can you move that over to that school? So utilizing that kind of data metrics, that kind of information is going to help us move forward and start saving more money for the district overall on that piece. That's just a moving target, so it's hard to quantify the data that is going to kind of go with that. But those are the ideal situations that we want to help capture with this project.
Definitely the inventory that we have in our storage units is worth more to us to utilize than to sell.
Yes.
Sure.
I think we're going to save money for the district overall, utilizing the resources that we have, managing them, taking better care of them, because what Shane kind of touched on earlier too, and we'll get to this a little bit, is moving all those items out of these Connex boxes and then you're also incurring damage on those items when you're moving them. So we have them plastic wrap and they're on these pallets. You're going to have better, we're going to utilize our resources a little bit better and take care of this.
We're going to know what we have. I mean, honestly, outside of the 40 some pictures we've got on the cloud, it's really hard to tell, okay, well, I got this many of elementary school desks or tables or so.
So what you talked about earlier, like when a building wants 25, that currently doesn't happen. We don't go and look at our storage units and say, hey, do we even have that? Because we don't have a database for it. We don't do that.
We don't have a database for it, but even in the pictures that we have right now, I know we don't have student desks in there. But you also have other things that are happening here that is kind of pushing against that of there are small storage areas in some of the other schools where they stockpile their items so that when they need them, they have them. Versus if we had a process of acquiring some of those items and stocking them for them, that's going to be a little bit cleaner of a process for us to have resources that can be utilized by the district total instead of random spots around the district that we're not even aware of the items that are out there. And so we're talking about going in and barcoding and individualizing each of the items, attaching condition status, so that then I can pull out a report that says, hey, I want to know how many items that we have in fair condition, so that I know when I am approving district-wide furniture requests, I say, okay, you have this many desks that are in fair condition. I know that realistically in the next couple of years, we need to be looking at saving up some dollars so that we can start purchasing new to replace those fair conditions.
I think we don't know what inventory we do have. I think what Colleen's saying is I'm finding within schools, Jill's not here anymore, but she's asking for some more storage space for folding tables, folding chairs, that kind of stuff. And she wanted me to come walk through the school so we can figure out where to build little pockets of here and there. But I can promise you that there's little desks stacked in little closets here and there because they don't know when they're going to need one. I was just in Abe Hubert the other day and walking through their locker room, and I know there's 30 desks in that locker room that nobody knows about unless you walk through there, but nobody goes in there anymore. If we had if we get the barcode and we know what that inventory is, we know we've got them and we know where they're at. So
problem with the excess inventory seems to be upstream. To me,
It's all the streams.
it seems to be that, you know, maybe whoever is evaluating whether we need to purchase more furniture or whatever, we need to maybe utilize more what we have than purchase new for a few years to reduce our inventory opposed to selling all of our inventory.
I mean, I think it is, I think number one, it starts by knowing what we do have and knowing where it's at. You know, and Colleen's working on that end of it. And then for me to be able to have a place that efficiently I can go pull it off a rack and take it to Abe Hubert, you know, and know that it's in good condition. I think, I mean, that's really the process that we're looking at.
We don't want to stop investing in our facilities. That's not what I'm suggesting, but I think to be conservative and efficient with what we have, we should utilize more of what we have as opposed to purchasing more until we get a grasp of what we're doing. And I think you guys are coming up with a plan for that, but to me, that's what it sounds like we need to do is, in a way, almost put a freeze on buying new equipment until we inventory and utilize what we have.
I think there's gonna be some items that we do know for sure, and we can kind of put pen to paper of knowing that they need to be replaced. But then there's gonna be other items that, until we know for sure what that status looks like district-wide, it would make sense to hold off on certain types of items. But there's a lot of wear and tear that happens in our schools. And we want to continue to be able to purchase good quality items that will last with some of that wear and tear. So naturally, the district this big and this many students, you're going to have ongoing wear and tear that we will have to address.
What is that number? I don't want to put you on the spot, but how much new furniture do we purchase every year?
Typically my budget is around 110,000. And then we have a furniture and equipment committee that then works with the schools to identify those purchases and what those go towards. And then each school submits those requests with an urgency level. Typically we try to get the schools there like number one priority of item to be replaced. But having that data and those metrics to help back up those decisions will help us here in the future.
Yep.
Cost analysis.
Cost analysis, okay.
Sorry.
So-
Get asked a bunch of questions.
So real quick, so one of the biggest thing for us in plant facilities is just the inefficiency of these metal containers. And watching this process, being part of the construction industry for 25 years and always counting hours and dollars and everybody's steps, you know. These metal containers, and we've got a couple pictures here later. I just kept going back to this. It's super inefficient, you know, and you all asked the questions about the initial costs. So I threw together, and I think I threw them out here a month ago, with the initial cost to purchase 16 containers. That's what we choose to do. Brand new is 172.5. If you buy them used, it's 106.5. But I really wanted to put the labor side into this. And so I went back and just calculated the amount of man hours we spent from May to September, just moving furniture. And I'm near this 1,200 man hours. Okay, now so it was really heavy August and September, a little into the end of July. But we spent 1,200 man hours. And so if you take that at a $14 hour rate, so you got a labor cost for just this year for 5 months or 6 months of $16,008. So you add the new cost. And then the other thing I took into consideration is the lifespan of the building. Okay, so it's easy to just look at this year, right? But if a building lasts us 30 years, okay, so let's look at the labor for 30 years. Okay, so I took that $16,008 that it cost us this year to run the furniture in and out of that, and I took it times 30. That's 504,000. So if you add the 504,000 to the brand new boxes of 172, you come up with the 676.5 number. So jump to the next slide there, Colleen. So then I did the same thing for the cost of a building, right? So everybody wants to compare the 172,000 for the cost of 16 containers to $350,000 for the cost of a new building, right? Well, that doesn't make much sense, right? Okay, so you got the 350,000. Okay, so my staff and I sit down and said, well, how much more efficient can we be if we've got a building layout, just like we want it? And we can use lifts, forklifts, we can use pallet jacks, we can use electric lifts to get materials in and out of here. And they said, and we came up with a number of at least 4 times more efficient. Okay, and I think that's super conservative, honestly, and I'll show you why here in just next couple slides. Okay, so I divided the 1,200 by 4. You got 300 man hours that we could have spent this summer moving furniture in and out of those buildings. All right, so you got the annual cost of $4,200. You take that times 30 years, that's 162,000. So you take the 350 times the 126, you get 476. It's easy to see that it's $200,000 difference between metal containers for 1 year and the building for 1 year, right? But let's multiply it by 30 years, okay? So, and then the easy math is, okay, so if I'm saving 900 man hours from the inefficient way versus 300 man hours, that's a whole nother man for me. And we just talked about internships. I'm super short of folks, right? They're not just walking in the doors, right? So I got a whole nother man for 30 years. What does that cost the district? $1.2 million.
That's not even the indexed price of how much that salary is gonna go up.
Right? That's easy math. Okay, so you take that times the cost, right? So we're really comparing right here for 30 years, the next 30 years, we're making a decision of $676,000, or we're making a decision of a negative $724,000. That's a $1.4 million difference. But when you figure in labor. Okay, so it might be obvious that the cost of the metal containers is cheaper than the building initially, but when you look at the inefficiencies, it's not even comparable. Okay, go to the next couple of slides there. So what was crazy is so Colleen and I put that spreadsheet together, looking at those costs. Right, the next day we get a phone call for 3 tables. Somebody found on one of the pictures. And said, hey, would you kind of deliver those to our school? We need 3 of those tables. All right, flip the next slide. So our warehouse manager and our delivery driver go out to the Connex box. They empty the whole thing to get the 3 tables, and then they got to put it all back in. Okay, took them 45 minutes, the 2 of them, to do that. Whereas if this stuff was sitting on a shelf in a building, and I go in there and pull out, one guy goes in and pulls it out with a forklift, puts it on a truck and takes it, 15 minutes at best? So, I mean, it just hit us in the
Tables
face.
in question are all the way back over here, all the way in the end. So you can see how much they had to move to just get those 3 tables all the way back there.
So,
Did you say we could use high school students to do that work?
yeah, no, I walked up and told, hey, I need 5 or 6 of those interns. So, absolutely.
I'm assuming the initial year that this building gets built, it's gonna take a little bit more man hours to get everything in there from all the schools and stuff.
You know, as we sort it out.
I can't believe there's nothing to track assets.
Spreadsheets. That's what we've been doing is spreadsheets. But I mean, the accuracy of that, never mind the fact of, you know, we've looked at these asset management systems where we would potentially have 1 or 2 people that go out and inventory all the schools every summer. We would then have a reconciliation report at the end of that, or an unreconciled report, so that at the end of it, we could say, hey, these are the items that are not reconciled. Where did they go? Did we auction them off? What happened to them? So having that good accounting process of tracking our resources, I think is going to be absolutely astounding for the district to move forward. So why do we think this is the best solution? So it's eliminated an ongoing expense for a one-time purchase. We have more efficient of a process that we'd like to utilize for the district. Moving furniture in and out of individual containers is labor intensive and inefficient. The layout of a storage building will be conducive to setting out items for auction, as well as storing a stock of most used items for buildings, such as chairs and equipment.
The storage facility will meet the identified storage needs of nutrition and technology as well. And overall, the storage building is more cost effective and resourceful with taxpayer dollars. I know there were some other questions too about utilities. So because we are just running electric initially, we would anticipate that an annual expense of utilities on the building would be $5,000 or less. I talked to our insurance company as well about adding this building to our policy, and we're looking at $100 annual premium to add this building on with assets. Some of the items are used and damaged, but for the most part, most of the items are in good condition, good usable condition. Like I showed you, technology items have also typically generated the most or the highest auction proceeds from that table. I think that's the majority that we hit, right?
Yeah, no.
Anything else?
Well, I think, I mean, you touched on it early on is that, you know, Achieve is looking for space all the time. And technology has a whole bunch of stuff on pallets down there. We just can't get it out. We don't have any place to go with it. And I know they'd love for us to come pick it up. We don't have anyone. So I don't want to speak for technology. I really don't understand their processes, but I know that they've got plenty of stuff that would come out.
So Shane, what you're asking for is, correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking for the board to authorize you to go and procure bids to do this project.
Yes.
Okay. So, and can you talk to them a little bit about how you're gonna manage the construction, like how that bidding process is all gonna work?
Yeah, so I'll create scope sheets. I mean, there's very few scopes here, you know, electrical, concrete, the wood frame building, two overhead doors, a couple lock doors. So there's really not a whole lot of scopes. I'll spec those out myself. And then we'll give them to Colleen and Denise, and they'll go through and put their bid packets together. They'll send them out to the bidders here locally. They'll come back in, we'll evaluate the bids and the scopes, and then between Ken Kerr and myself, we'll manage it.
So you're gonna bring ultimately all those individual bid packages back to the board to review and approve.
Well, I mean,
Once we have the bids, it'd probably be a total package and then we'll have it broken down by individual bids within that total package for the board.
So we're not really, what we'd be doing tonight is authorizing you to move forward with that process. We're not authorizing the purchase or the actual construction of this building.
Because it is labor intensive to put those bidding packets together, I didn't want Shane to kind of spin his wheels if the board wasn't in support of the building overall. So that's why we brought it here to you guys first, is we wanted to make sure that you were in support of the concept before he starts doing all the work to then get those bid packets together.
Well, when,
Sorry, I couldn't see.
sorry, when you're gonna run the utilities there, are they gonna be roughed in, like the plumbing and that, or no, are you just gonna?
we'll stub up and cap it. We won't do anything outside of that.
I move that we authorize the project as proposed.
There a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion?
The only thing that I would say is I'm in agreement to move forward with the bid process, but in the bid process, I would like a bid on some type of inventory control or asset control with this. I think that's the bigger problem in my opinion.
I think
We're in the middle of that right
we
now.
would like to probably come back to the board in potentially March or April with a system to move forward with to help meet those needs.
I just want to thank you for coming back with this, because I feel like you answered the questions. I know it was extra work. This was laid out really nice. This is an example of a great presentation.
I
So,
agree 100%.
in my opinion, anyway, you got me to understand it. So, thank you for that. So it's been moved and seconded to allow them to proceed with the seeking out the bids for the building.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. And again, thank you for putting that time in.
This is the fun stuff.
That's right.
Oh,
I'm trying to figure out why I didn't put this in a board goal update, because that's what it is, and then I would have been first and back to relaxing.
You have the agenda, so.
I know, this is totally an oversight on my part.
Strategic plan.
You have 5.5 minutes. No, I'm okay. Take your time.
Actually, a lot of it is an overview, and you've read the full report from Gary Seacrest, so this is, I hope, kind of a quick presentation anyway. So I put this slide on here on purpose, so you can see that one of our board members was part of this process, so.
I was there one night.
Yeah, and I think Andy was there a second night. No, oh, I was there one night. You were there one night, yeah, thank you for that. All right, so we did meet for 2 nights with our district site council, October 18th and 20th. Dr. Dominguez did a brief orientation because all of these site council members were repeat from last year. So we didn't do a lot of the things that we typically do with site council with touring the buildings because that had been done last year. So Dr. Dominguez gave an update and then we jumped right in with the work. So what is it that was valued as it relates to students, educational program, physical plant, personnel, and communications? We had lots of the big poster paper and it was up around all of the walls, outside in the hallways, but everybody was working. There was a lot of thought process that went into this on what we actually thought we already do well. That was the first discussion. Then we took those items plus added to it. So what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that we see that is facing our district? So for strengths and weaknesses, some of this is harder to see, I imagine, because there's a lot of it, but I want you to notice how many strengths that you see up there. The site council was very, felt very strongly about a lot of the things that we're already doing as being strengths. So a lot of the stuff we do with our diversity and the fact that we have so much diversity is a strength for our community. The student programs that we do, the community support, we have businesses that come in. Our last professional development, we had businesses in the commons area working with our high school groups on their career pathways. We have a tremendous support from the community. We're very student focused, lots of extracurricular opportunities. Neighborhood schools was brought up as a strength. Teachers caring for student success, individual learning plans, variety of cultures, and very progressive. So you can see, I just kind of hit some of the high points there. In the weaknesses, lack of staff was probably repeated the most. The number of buildings, so just the general upkeep, because we do have so many buildings in the district. Continuity of programs, para support and compensation. A lot of these aren't going to be surprises to you. Personalized learning. So are we making sure we give those students exactly what they need to move forward through their pathway? And you'll see, this is real interesting because you'll see in a lot of these discussions as we move forward, this site council knew nothing about the new graduation requirements, but they were already thinking that direction. And so those are going to be some things that are in our goals that they foresaw as a need.
Can I ask a quick question? On when you say the career pathways and getting the students what they need, was it pretty much focused upper grades or was it all grades?
It was all grades. It was all grades. And when we talk about career pathways, and even as part of the KISA process, we talk about what are our elementary schools doing to move the kids forward. Post-secondary success isn't just a high school goal. We need to start at the elementary, and you will see the number of businesses that are coming into our elementary school and sharing their jobs and what they do with the kids there. The agriculture units coming in, and we go out to the farms. So all of those things happen at the elementary ages to start creating that interest and helping them figure out what they want to do. So it's a pre-K-12 goal. Absolutely. Good question. Thank you. Opportunities. What do we see here that is a kind of a bonus for our area? The economic growth that we're seeing in Garden City. That is a boon for our communities and our schools. The local control that our schools have in Kansas was something else. Again, overall growth in the community, the culture, dual credit for our students. And if you'll remember from the KISA report last year, that was a huge growth area for us. So the partnership with the college as well. Our professional development, fostering student leaders, the number of civically engaged schools that we have and those schools that are getting those awards. Science of reading that is being done with our TNTP and our professional development again. Virtual opportunities, mentorships, those were all opportunities. We also reimburse staff for going to school and working on those master's degrees and advanced degrees. We try to help them. So lots of opportunities within Garden City. The threats are things that we think that we're struggling with. We have schools in the area that do 4-day, and that always comes up around negotiation, 4-day work week. Decline in education and the career. We're struggling to find teachers, but it's not just a Garden City's problem. It's everywhere because there just aren't as many students in the colleges going into education. The political discourse, this was one that came out where teachers feel like they're under attack politically for what they're teaching or not teaching in the school district. Housing and childcare in Garden City specifically are issues. Our location in Western Kansas, people want to be where there's water and trees or mountains and snow, but anywhere but smack dab down here in Western Kansas. Teacher shortage, our pay scale, the migrant employees from Tyson does also create its challenges, making sure we can keep up with the people to help with those families and acclimate them to our district and the interpreters that we need for each of those different languages. So we're currently looking for a couple of different interpreters and some services. Loss of funding and decrease in population within the school causes our budget to fluctuate. So, and then the pandemic itself was a bit of a problem, not just for us, but for others. So those were the threats that the site council saw. So once they worked through that, then they started looking at the common themes in their discussions and what areas tend to keep rising to the top. And they did a voting process. Some of those were put together. So you see up at the top on there, we have staffing and compensation, and a lot of these we put together. So staffing, compensation, and workload went together as one staffing element. Working with our staff, community and community involvement went together. Student success, high expectation, post-secondary success, and the whole child, teaching the whole child went together. So our top 4 areas then were those staffing, community involvement, student success. Let's see what else I missed here. Yeah, staff support, parent community engagement, diversity, and the facilities, the student success were the top 4 areas that the site council came up with. So we took those areas and the suggestions that they made under each of those areas. We also did a teacher survey. So what, as teachers, when we specifically look at the KISA process, what do they feel that are the areas that most commonly rise to the top of something that we need to work on? Looking at our data, our student success, that type of thing. Overwhelmingly, our teachers chose individual plans of study, which is something we're kind of hearing about tonight anyway, and social emotional, which, as you know, a lot of our students need extra support anymore. So those were the top 2 that came out in the teacher survey. After that, we took it to the cabinet with all of the directors and the coordinators and asked them to look it over and give their input. They added facilities and resources, which is something that the site council, it did not rise up to the top level with them. They added those 4 areas. Cabinet felt very strongly that we needed an area to address facilities and resources within the district. Then we took it to principals and said, give us your feedback on this document. They did a lot of wordsmithing. They felt like mostly everything was in there that they could think of, but they did things like where we needed to explore resources. They wanted to explore, find them, and then implement them. So they didn't want to just say, well, we're going to look at this and not do anything. They wanted to make sure that we were going to take it back and implement it with the students. So they were a lot of our wordsmithing final document. So once we're all said and done, we came up with staff support and development as an area for the 5-year plan. You can see the different areas. I don't know that I need to read them, but I think you can see they all have to do with recruiting, retention, and appropriate salary and benefits. There's also the one for communication in there and positive staff culture. So the next one was parent and community engagement. So again, another site council recommendation area. Again, working with communication, expanding our community involvement and partnerships with the schools in the district and the community. Engage parents with clear communications about the need and success of students. So making sure that our parents understand their students' program. And I think this year we're seeing a lot of students do that with programs like Leader in Me. They're bringing the parents in and really explaining what goals we're setting for the students and also for these building weeks. You know, when you see that on every email that the principal like David sends out, we're getting that out there and communicating what we're working on. And then partnering with social service agencies to offer more parental support classes. So we know that our students have SEL needs. How can we support those families? And we do have a lot of agencies that will come in and partner with us to offer classes to parents. Diversity is a strength, but also some things that we need to be aware of and grow. Create opportunities, experiences, environments for a diverse population. Research ideas and implement. There's that where they added that word strategies to support our at-risk students. Promote positive portrayal of schools through social media. Programs for employee morale and mental health. So dealing with teacher stress, para stress, principal stress, deputy superintendent stress. No, so you know, there's stress with the job. And so how do we help our employees with that? And then also looking at our services for immigrants and helping with that. I will say, I'm going to give a shout out to Monica right now with that because she has been partnering with Catholic Charities. She's reached out to Tyson. They did again at our professional development here this last week. They had 5 different interpreters or people from different cultures come in and sit down with our staff and talk about their cultures. And it was very, very well received. They did a great job. And then again, making sure that when we communicate to our families, we communicate in their language. So can our website, for example, you know, translate to different languages and the new one can, so.
I have a question on that slide. Not that it's not important, I think it is. I was just wondering if you could specify more on promote programs to facilitate employee morale and mental health, how that falls under the diversity category.
Well, actually, that was one of the things the principals brought up, that they saw that there were a few things that could maybe be moved back to, that could be under the staff area as well. So this is a draft. And so if you think, well, I'd rather see that up there in that one.
That doesn't need to be decided now. I wasn't
Right.
trying to pick it all. I was just processing what was
Yeah,
there.
that's where the site council put it. So that's where I left it until we get through this
It just
process.
seemed, I may be the only one. It just seemed out of place to me. More focus on
I
staffing,
think,
but
I think where that one come from, I remember some talks about not being able to communicate with all the different students is where
okay,
that.
okay, that
came
makes
from.
sense. That's why I asked, because I wondered if there was a conversation that maybe would have it fall under there.
Yeah.
And then promote the inclusion of all students in quality learning environments. That fits there. I just wondered, curious the conversations on that one.
Again, I think it's more inclusionary. For example, looking at our special ed population and this year moving them out into more regular ed, general ed classes. Also the same with our ESL students. I will tell you, even from my time as a special ed teacher, we're so protective. And it's so hard to say, yes, they need to go out to this regular ed program. But yet when you listen to David talk about, we've got to make sure and not pull them for intervention, and they need to have access to tier 1. So those kinds of things are what we're talking about, making sure they have those opportunities and we're not pulling them out of a crucial time, or we're not holding on to them too long in a resource setting, whether that's ESL or SPED, and not giving them that opportunity at all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Facilities and resources. So this one did not come from the site council. This is the one that the coordinators, directors, cabinet people recommended. So again, some kind of plan to maintain and update current facilities, security and monitoring. This one was a biggie all the way around. You saw that come up in the site council, but they didn't end up with a goal with it, but our staff thought it should be included. And that's a daycare option for staff or facilitate communication with community partners to support housing and daycare options. Because the number of times we've heard our principals or teachers say, if I can't find a babysitter for my kid, or when we thought community daycare wasn't going to be open for a while, principals were calling and said, I have 3 teachers out because community daycare isn't open this week. What do I do? So I think daycare and housing both are very, very important for our staff. Technology department, making sure we're looking at growth opportunities with technology. Continuing to expand our early childhood program and facilities needs. So we are looking at, we're maxing out the building there. So what do we do next? I'm thrilled we're growing early childhood and our classes are full. But what do we do as we expand that program and how do we make that happen? And then, as was already mentioned again, some of these overlap. Garden City Achieve is growing and the college has asked for another bay to expand the auto program up there. So they want an auto 1 and an auto 2 kind of program. Lucas is thrilled with the opportunity to offer more programs for his students and the high school students. But we need this space as well. So making sure that we support the growth for that program as well as the virtual program. The student success and student-centered programming. Again, this is where we will probably look at for our KISA goals. So these are the areas that align most with the state board outcomes. So we have individual plans of study. The second one is exactly what we were talking about earlier tonight, looking at vocational work-based learning, dual credit opportunities. Again, having those expectations before the state even decided that we needed to look at that for our graduation requirements. Curriculum to support social emotional learning, continuing to support AVID, civic engagement opportunities for all students, and the quality rigorous curriculum with high expectations and supporting the staff who are teaching that. So that was the last one. Next steps on this is a first read, so I'll take any feedback that you have, and then it, barring not a lot of changes, it will go to the consent agenda the next time. And then our KISA work group will come up with 2 of these to recommend to you for our KISA goals, and those then will have to be more detailed. So we'll have to have a specific growth plan and measurable goals. So we'll say we want to meet it at this in the next 5 years. So it will have an end goal. And then we will finalize our year 1 report and get it back to you. So that's where we're at. Questions? 5 minutes, close? It was 5 minutes.
Thanks for all your,
Okay.
thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah, it's all very logical. There's all kinds of interesting discussion within that to come.
Our site council did a wonderful job. They really worked hard at it, so.
Well, we didn't have any more questions.
I just noticed, and again, this will come, but like, for instance, safety and security, that was an opportunity. It wasn't a threat. And certainly.
Thank you. Yes. Next up, the compensation study.
You guys get to hear my beautiful voice again. Really trying to deliver today. Okay, so compensation study. So a couple of things that Dr. Alcorta and I started discussing as our objectives moving forward to why to do a compensation study. So we really want to compare pay rates to the private and public entities within our community. So not only city, county, of course, just what's going on the private market here as well. We're all competing for the same amount of people here in Garden City, which
we all know that it's kind of a human capital issue that we're also up against. So we want to compare also pay rates to similarly sized school districts. So looking at how other districts, you know, that 9 districts from our storage facility presentation, they're all within that 6,000 to 7,000 head count of students. That would be our same pool of districts to also compare our pay rates to. So we want to enhance our job descriptions, clear up some ambiguity with the job descriptions. Some of the things with that is our previous compensation study in 1819. There's some small mechanisms within those job descriptions that have kind of caused us a little bit of angst this year when trying to establish pay rates and the identified or required educational requirements for staff members. So one of those things is it has on there like degree preferred. Well, the degree preferred could be associate's degree, it could be bachelor's degree. Preferred, is that required? So there's some of those like little pieces that we really want to create a little bit more clarity moving forward within our job descriptions so that we can have good, strong job descriptions to then base a compensation study off of, because we want to make sure that we are accurately compensating for the job duties that are required within each of those descriptions. So fourth point here is ensure job descriptions are accurate reflections of the job duties. So our selection process. One of the first things that we did is we sent out an email to our listserv. So there's a business manager listserv across the state. So I sent out a question to other business managers asking them what companies they have previously contracted with to complete compensation studies over time. And I got kind of a pool of 3 or 4 different selections, and then went and pulled in one that I've had a prior working history with through the county. They did the county's compensation study in 1819. So reached out to colleagues across the state. That's how we got some of them. And in that process, Dodge City then reached out to me to kind of talk about, now, what are you guys doing? What are you thinking about? So we had a little work group session with some of our counterparts at Dodge City to kind of talk through what are we trying to accomplish? What are they trying to accomplish? Kind of pulling our resources and some of the information back and forth. So that was really nice to help talk to another district that is literally seeing the exact same issues within their district that we are. So it was really nice to have that. Initially, when we went out and talked to the 5 companies, we asked for a quote to look at 100 job descriptions and 1,200 employees. When we got those proposals back, it was definitely higher than what we were planning to spend. So then we really talked about, okay, what job descriptions do we really want to focus on? And how can we utilize this process to kind of benchmark specific positions? So we can do custodians. So if we establish the custodians pay rate, then a head custodian would be $1 or $2 more. So you create your baseline for those employees, and then you add to it based on where do those actual baseline positions need to begin. So in that process, we were able to scale back to about 25 to 30 job descriptions. 30 would be nice, but we really can get down to 25. A lot of those are really going to be focusing on our classified positions, but 25 there. So when we went back, modified that to the 25 to 30 to also still look at our 1,200 employees when they're looking at a market analysis overall, to also address compression within the baselines that then they create. So once we got that, we then received the proposals. So the 5 companies that we identified was Educational Management Solutions. So they only work with educational institutions. This was the company that we contracted with in 2018, 2019. The reason why we're straying from that one is we want to help bolster what we already have. And so it's going to be beneficial for the district to get a new set of eyes on what we currently have standing. out there to then bring in kind of a new opinion on what we have going on. CBIZ, they're based out of St. Louis. They focus on public sector, so usually cities and counties. They quoted us 16 weeks to complete, and it was overall the highest proposal for the components that the other studies will provide to us. Arnold Group is focused on typically public sector. They utilize a job database to compare pay rates so they can look at our local market and do an analysis on our local market for those pay rates to utilize that in where they adjust and set those rates. AGH, so the focus is public sector. They have 12 weeks until completion. And then McGrath, public sector, they submitted an original proposal on the 100 job descriptions. And then when we scaled it back, they didn't ever modify, and I had 3 follow-ups with them to try and get that proposal updated so that we could have 5 to look at, and I was unable to acquire that. So coming down to it, when we went through the proposals, looking at our strict timeline of looking at realistically 2 months, because when I am looking at budget projections, going into negotiations and looking at just the overall status of the district in planning, I need these numbers to work off of so that we can make a decision on where we're going to set classified and where we're setting certified, since I'm looking at the same pool of money to support the salaries of both parties. So it's the only proposal that can meet the demands of our timeline, so 7 weeks. We have a prior experience working with the group. So I worked with them at the county. Darlene Lucas, one of our HR coordinators, headed that project at the county as well and has great things to say about the Arnold Group. So the caliber of their job descriptions and modality to score and revise the job descriptions. In your packet, you received an example job description that they produced for an HR resource director. It is extremely detailed. And that's what we're looking at. We want very thorough job descriptions moving forward so that we can have accurate portrayals of the positions and the job duties of each of these positions. Their market analysis and compression analysis is going to be really helpful with us so that we can look at our benchmark positions, but also how does it affect the compression of all the other positions of the district, as well as the number of years of service of those people within those positions. So that we're not coming in, bringing in brand new staff at a higher rate than a 25-year employee. Those kind of metrics are going to be important for us when utilizing this information. So they do have a database that can access and compare pay rates in our area. Responsive to any questions, requests, and communications. As we're moving forward through this process, it is going to be instrumental to the success of the program that we have a responsive consultant that we are working with. Anytime I sent them an email, almost always they were on the phone right back to me, having a conversation with me to flesh out some of the details and what we're looking for. So I think that's very important for us moving forward. So they offer a point factor analysis, benchmark salaries, pay spread per grade, and employee compensation analysis. What did I miss?
You did good. I mean, we just want to see where we're at in the market. I mean, that's the bottom line. Like I've been telling y'all for about 2 months now. It's just that, we know that we're low. I mean, but how low are we? I mean, how do we need to, and we've been calling it basically a market adjustment, not really a pay raise for our folks, just a market adjustment, because we know that we need to increase some compensations for our classified staff.
I mean, you can even call it a COLA for that matter, because there's just such a change in groundwater, you don't necessarily measure the level, the depth of the water while the aquifers change. And there's a lot of change going on in the market. And a lot of it has to do with the cost of living. So I know you about need to rely on the reputation of the firms to make sure that they're not giving you data that's obsolete in a few months. So that would be my only comment, is just in the process, it sounds like your recommendation's a very good one. As long as they're clear that they're, or that you're able to explain to us, you know, how the adjustment was made for that movement in the economy.
And when they did the county's proposal, they kind of gave us a graded approach to getting to where the county needed to be overall in compensation. What we anticipate is having to take a graded approach to addressing compensation over time. Because the market has rapidly changed since 2018, 2019, and it is continually to rapidly change. So trying to make sure that the district has that market edge. The other major piece of this too is really doing an analysis on our benefits package. So as you guys know, when we're self-funded, our benefits package also has a large expense. So we have to look at what our benefits look like compared to wages as well when you're doing this analysis. There's a major cost, and that is a benefit to the district as well. So that will be a proponent that we will have to also analyze in this.
I'd also congratulate you on partnering. And although Dodge needs to understand we're further west, so there's a western factor there added on to the compensations.
Other questions?
I guess that's I want to piggyback on that, collaborating with Dodge, or at least having conversations with Dodge, and they're in a similar situation. Do they plan to be moving forward, or are we literally, can we partner with them and share costs in something like this? Because our communities are somewhat similar, and you kind of mentioned the other districts that we looked at when we did the earlier presentation, and some of those to me don't really look necessarily like our community and our district. So I wonder those, when they do this type of analysis and do comparisons, or do they do comparisons with communities that, I mean, they already have some that with the statistics that are going to look more closely like our community?
So there's been actually a couple who recently have started on compensation studies, and they have actually reached out to us to get our salary schedules. So they use us as a comp, so we've got to use them as a comp as well. It makes sense in some of those instances. Some of the communities are similar, just not exact as ours, but when we have talked to Dodge, that is the point of view that we have taken from the get-go, is if there's some cost sharing that we can do, because we are a comp to each other, that we would like to utilize some savings when moving forward. I reached out to Dodge again today, and they were still trying to decide which company that they'd like to proceed with. Our major factor here is timeline, that we have a very strict timeline, that we are kind of already behind the 8 ball and trying to move forward. And I need to know these numbers and have an idea of where we're going to go as a district with compensation going into negotiations.
Speaking on the timeline, what are you asking from us as a board? What's the next step for?
Ideally, I would really appreciate it if you guys did a vote today so that I could hit the ground running with compensation studies. And the reason that is Arnold Group says 7 weeks to completion. So that puts me at mid-March with getting that done, and then anticipating negotiations starting in April. So that gives me 2 weeks to have time to flush it out. Results are going to come back to you.
Did you run this by legal?
The compensation study.
The package that they're talking about, because I'm assuming like pages 10, is that the contract type?
No, I haven't seen an actual contract or anything, but as soon as I do have a contract, so once I have approval from the board, I will then run that contract typically through legal, and then we will move forward.
So what I'm not looking at the right thing. Is this just a sample?
It's just a sample.
Oh, okay, yeah.
What's the cost associated?
25,000.
785.
Thank you.
That is
remember.
That is the price that they're putting out for us.
Yes.
That's not. Okay.
Yes, but it's not the actual agreement that we would
I see
sign.
what you're saying.
I just kind of like to work from something on the table, so I'm just gonna step out there. And I'm not trying to get ahead of any board member, but I would move that we approve that as proposed, and then see if we can get to discussion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, discussion, any questions, more questions or comments?
I do want to make the comment that we've tried to be very transparent with the teachers when we come into those negotiations with available funds and what is fair. And so anything like this that informs that, I think just helps all of us.
What is the typical time between doing these kind of studies? Since you mentioned we've done one, and you may have already answered this question. We did one in 18-19, and we're ready to do one again.
The board policy has, the board has a policy that every 10 years we do a compensation study. So at the minimum, so we could always do more than that if we prefer. Which with our current climate here, it's imperative that we move forward with one.
Anybody else?
So if put my mind at ease, so if we go forward with this, then they'll submit a formal contract. And then that goes to legal and.
Yep.
Okay.
So once I have basically the board's approval to move forward, I'll take then that finalized agreement with them, send it over to legal, and then we can put it in the minute with Mike so that you guys can have it back.
And if this price changes at all, it'll need to come back to us.
Absolutely, yep. So when you approve, this gives me a maximum number to be authorized to spend, and then if that cost does exceed that, then it would have to go back through the board for final approval before it is paid.
We're gonna vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thanks
Thank
for your
you.
work.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our resolution to extend term board officers and resolution to set board meeting dates and times. And I was the one that asked to remove this from the consent agenda. I just thought, I wanted to, not to get out of my job. I'll definitely serve through July if that's what the board would like me to do. I just thought that we bring up the point that with the time of how elections have changed, that I feel like this problem will, or issue, problem isn't the word to say, but will come up again as we have turnover with board members in future years. So I just wanted to question whether we wanted to do that or go ahead and elect new officers. If we decided to do this year, it would be at the next meeting, but make that the regular thing versus changing officers in July. And perhaps the calendar dates too, but. Or we can go ahead and have a motion and extend that for both those resolutions.
I'd have to say that I think we work well within the current, but we can work well in a different leadership structure. So I'm certainly not advocating. But, just, I don't really plan to run again. And so I'm not really interested in jumping into a leadership position that would be a partial year. That's just me. So I'm letting everybody know that that's why I'm fine, just a resolution here to extend
And that would extend it to July.
to July.
So then
And
we
then
do-
we have to deal with it again,
Right.
but we get to deal with it again. And then if there is additional thoughts, certainly we have that opportunity then to do that. What was my thinking?
I'm obviously the newest board member, so, officer terms expire at the end of July right now? Or-
Yes.
Okay, so August 1st, a new officer would. New officers take their seats in August right now? Is that how it's currently structured?
Yeah, I think this particular consideration came up by statute, by action of the legislature. Mistaken. That's why we have it on the agenda today. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it till the new fiscal year, the new reorganization. If that was, I'm sorry, maybe I didn't hear your question.
So right now, your term as board president ends when?
Would end in July. But because of the change in when elections were switched, then according to state statute, then we have to, if we're gonna keep it that way, we have to have a resolution every year that we're gonna extend it to July. Otherwise, it would change in January.
So new board officers would take those seats in January if we did nothing.
Right.
To me, it seems like it's better to have it start in June, because exactly like you may have somebody take the position and then not get reelected. And I think this just eliminates that possibility from happening. So is this,
And so you don't, that way, the way if we extend it, we're simply, in one sense, we are saying, hey, it's kind of nice to keep the leadership through the school year. There's some logic there.
yeah, that's a good point.
And I'm kind of putting it on you guys because I'm not planning to run again. So this is, which you could change it again the next year, but it wouldn't really make sense if you went one way and then to go back. I was just seeking your opinions on that. And if not, we can just go ahead and vote to extend those.
Well, just to get it on the table, I so moved
To extend.
To extend them,
to extend.
but then we would have officer elections in July.
I'll make a comment. I would agree with Andy that we should start electing officers in January. But with the inexperience of our board, that may be something that we need to do in a different year. I mean, we're all pretty young outside of the 3 veterans in the middle.
No, I don't see anyone jumping out of the chair volunteering. It's fine. I just wanted to bring that up because I don't think sometimes we continue to do things just because that's the way we do this sometimes. I'll second Mark's.
And I mean, I agree with you as well, but what John said was, I think, our concern too, that you all are very, very new.
Yeah.
Which I think is,
It's gonna have to be looked at every year. I mean, so it can always change if it needs to.
and not that I don't think any one of you are not capable, I just don't know that you want to do that.
Okay. Been moved and seconded, I believe. Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Okay. Motion passed. Okay, discussion of curriculum council items, recommendation for textbook adoption for the ELA phonics. I was part of this, some board members may have some other questions on that. We can approve that. Whoever would like to jump in.
Is this a first read? First recommendation, I guess. It's a curriculum council process, so it's just, as it goes through curriculum council, it just comes to the consent agenda to go through, just like everything else. It's a supplemental program, as Mr. Deloach was talking about earlier. It's a phonics program, and so it's by the University of Florida Literacy Institute, who's widely respected in structured literacy. We have a couple schools that are using it in their tier 2 and also supplementing some of their tier 1 instruction for phonics. And so they went through curriculum council approved it, and it was put on the consent agenda like all other processes. So I was the one that asked for it to be moved off the consent agenda onto the new business. And the reason I did that is I just,
as we've adopted curriculum over the last, since I've been on the board, we've just asked that we have a letter from the curriculum provider basically saying that none of their curriculum has anything to do with critical race theory or anything like that. We've approved some curriculum with the promise that we would receive that after we approved it, and have not. So I'm hesitant.
What have we not received?
A letter from the manufacturer of the curriculum stating what we've asked. But it
That they
doesn't
won't teach
contain,
critical race theory or.
I mean, to my knowledge, the two that we adopted last year, TCI for 6-12 social studies and K-12 math, we had both of those.
we receive them.
Okay, I'll double check. I mean, I know for sure I had the math one. I'll double check to find the TCI, but
But I just asked for it to be moved on to new business to build consistency as we add new curriculum. What that letter is provided.
but, I mean, I found out about it this afternoon, so we haven't had a chance to. We reached out to I mean, this is by the University of Florida, so it's not a company. So it's a research institute within the University of Florida, so I'm not sure if they're gonna be able to how long it's gonna take for us to get to someone, because this is a free resource that's out there. It is just phonics instruction. So phonics instruction is just matching the sound to a letter. So it's, I think the curriculum guide and what is being taught is in there, but we can work on it. I mean, I didn't come prepared to present it. Doc Dominguez let me know this afternoon that this may get pulled out. We just don't have anything at this time for that. Right now, I wouldn't even know who to contact because it's just a website that you go on and download the resources or buy the book.
I'm gonna jump in real quick. And I remember that we requested it on those past curriculums, and it's also a concern I have. I want to make sure that topics are appropriate to the curriculum, what the curriculum is meant to do, and also that it doesn't have those type of, my words will get turned around no matter how I say it, and I'll offend somebody, but I don't care. I want it to be age appropriate and curriculum appropriate for students, and the way that critical race theory has been promoted is promoted in a negative way that does not benefit our students. And so if that's something that the board would like to further move forward and have a policy or some type of procedure where we request that every time for curriculum, that's something we need to discuss. And I think we could take a couple minutes to discuss it and see how we want to move forward with the specific curriculum, but I think it's definitely something we need to keep on the table and see as a board what we can do to make that a consistent process, if that's something we want to follow through with. And that may not be the consensus of the whole board, but I think it's fair to have the conversation because it is out there where there are curriculums that are on both sides of the table where agendas are being pushed, and it doesn't need to be in there. It needs to be about phonics or it needs to be about math. So I think it's okay to talk about it. People are afraid to talk about it because it's going to upset somebody, but we need to because it's happening either way. So we need to focus on this specific curriculum so we can get it in the classroom if it's the right one. So if that's something that we need to add to get it approved or not, we just need to have that discussion.
Yes. Can I ask a quick question? And I'm not sure, I look at Glenda, but anybody really. Is there a similar kind of policy in our policy book?
Yes, there is. I can get the most updated policy from KSB and then have Jennifer look at it. We can add that step in there for our curriculum adoption. You know, we've got lots of meetings coming up for change of policy, to look at policy, so I can put that as a priority item.
Because of course, the point there is if you've already got the policy, it's in place.
Right.
And all you need is a statement to say the curriculum council reviewed and it's consistent with policies of the board. Unless there's some hyper concern that we want articulated explicitly, which to me is unnecessary. That's just me. As long as we've already got it in the policy and it's the curriculum counselor found it.
We have a policy. There's nothing in there that requires a critical race statement. So if we needed to add that to our policy, we could, but we don't, it isn't currently in our policy. We have a policy on how we're going to adopt textbooks, but that isn't in any of the steps.
So to me, that would be the avenue to address the ongoing concern. So that you're not put in a weird position at this time, every time we come up with something.
Yeah, and I don't mean to put you in a weird position. I'm just trying to build consistency where we're not picking on one versus the other. And I know it's probably not even applicable to this, but I want it to be consistent how we adopt curriculum. Not, hey, we didn't do it on this one, we did on that. Lesson taught to me by Dana.
And it may be a process change versus or addition versus a policy change. I'm not sure. That's a discussion that'll.
And I think John kind of alluded to it right now, and Jason has talked about it. Some things, like this is going to go on as a phonics intervention type item. That question may not be able to be answered for that. Because they're looking at, like Jason said, letter sounds and blends and phonemic awareness types of skills. So they may not be thinking about race and
Well, whole words either. I mean, it's a short U, short O. I mean, it's letters and vowels and phonemic awareness and some components of literacy also. So, I mean, and it's K1, 2. So it's some children. I mean, like children. So anyway, the doubling R, the W rule and so forth.
So basically, the likelihood of that occurring is minimal, but again, I agree with John on wanting to have the consistency across the board for the curriculums.
Absolutely.
There's a way to get there, it sounds like.
Yep.
It was my understanding though that this was a supplement, but when we say supplement, it's a whole different textbook. We've not been presented with this particular company or because I vaguely do remember too that I thought we did get certificates, but I mean, we've done several different curriculums, I think, at this point, but
So this is like a manual for practice, for skills. It's a skill building. It's not even I think it's labeled as curriculum, but it's not a curriculum. It's a resource to build the phonics skills. So we use Haggerty, which you guys did approve at some point in time I think in the fall. Haggerty does phonemic awareness. That's just the sounds. So if I say blank and take out the K and put in a T, what sound or what word do I make? And we practice that. So we're just working on the sounds. There's no letters that we're looking at connected to them. Phonics is the next step. Phonics is actually looking at a word and seeing the letters, and now I'm making sounds from the letters that I see. So that's the second skill that we build in the reading continuum. And then we go on to fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. And our benchmark curriculum that you guys adopted in 2018, 2019, somewhere in that neighborhood, has some of those, but not at the depth that we need to build the reading skills. And so this is a skill-based manual to practice with kids. So right now, the schools that are asking to have it on curriculum counts, we're not buying it for everyone. This is just adding to our protocol so that schools that feel like they need some extra phonics practice in tier 1 or tier 2, but have the ability to use this U-Flyer, the University of Florida phonics manual to use within the classroom to help their students that need some extra phonics. As Mr. Deloach was talking about, you got to build those skills before you can become readers. So it's called that learning to read continuum. So they're learning how to read. So we're not purchasing anything. We're just giving approval for schools to purchase it and use it if they want to. It's $90 for one book. And so we have a couple buildings that have went ahead and purchased some of it just to see what it was like and now brought it to Curriculum Council as they feel like it's a valuable resource to use in the classroom. So it's a straight blade screwdriver compared to a Phillips. We've got the Phillips, we just want to have a straight blade in case we need it. And so we're just adding that tool into our tool belt for literacy instruction.
And it has gone through the curriculum council with their recommendations. So I think we get presentations for some of the bigger curriculums that are.
So those are textbook adoptions that are on our schedule. So this year on the schedule is K4 social studies and K12 PE. We started those. We had some meetings last week where PE teachers started looking at different curriculums. I think they've narrowed it to 1 or 2 that they're going to be able to present to you guys. Probably the 2nd February or the first one in March. And then really at this point in time, 4th grade social studies is the only one that we're looking to add in the K4. The K3 teachers want to continue to just keep using their benchmark curriculum. And I used to call them weekly readers, scholastic news, as kind of adding in some nonfiction pieces to what they're already doing. So we do have a smaller adoption year. Last year, we had a pretty big adoption year in doing that. I think what we did, John, was we got letters for things that you guys purchased. And so we're more than happy to get letters. It's gonna take more time knowing that that's a process we'll have to do for every curriculum council piece that we approve. But in this case, we're looking at last year, it's things that the district purchased money with. So as districts use money purchased would have that kind of statement. What we're doing now is we were just giving buildings the opportunity to add it to their resource list.
That sounds good to me. I just want to make sure there's consistency, and it sounds like we probably just need to update the policy so we don't have to come back to it every time.
Any other questions, or I'll entertain a motion?
So John, with that statement, then you're okay with approving this curriculum and then adding, okay. I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Oh, any discussion? I'm sorry. I'll move now. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Okay, some discussion on the additional structural engineering expense.
Madam President, I'm gonna refuse.
Yes, thank you. I don't remember to ask him to come back.
Yeah.
I forgot the data once.
He's had to recuse himself for the actual vote. You can still have it part of the discussion.
I did, yeah, I don't know.
We want to keep him in the dark.
Okay. I'll admit when I don't know, and I'm not sure.
He has to be out for the whole.
Okay.
The whole piece.
Anything else? So, who has questions?
Well, I have asked that this was off the consent agenda as well, to be brought to discussion. I think when we're talking about spending an additional $900,000 of taxpayers' money, that we should discuss it in front of them and discuss the details as to why. I did a lot of calls on this today. I talked to Hutton. I also talked to Sean Miller. Sean is kind of the representative that works for our school district that works for ICE. So basically, when they did the ESCO, Sean told me that the ESCO project was kind of pushed through pretty quick. Dr. Carlin wanted to get it done before he left. And Sean basically told me he did not have a chance to bid the structural part. They allocated $500,000 into that based on basically $100,000 per each building for structural, but there was no company that actually did it. It was just a, yes. And that allocation was put into the ESCO loan, the ESCO money that we approved back then. So with that question, when I was talking to him, he says, hey, we want to do basically we want to have the school go out on their own, hire a structural contractor and get a bid and do it that way outside of the ESCO. Because this is above and beyond our, allocation that we had. So contract reads, according to Colleen, I have not seen it, but it reads that anything over 500,000, the school district is responsible. My concern or my issue with that is we have $500,000 in an ESCO that's allocated for it. If we go out and buy it, or we go out and hire our own contractor, how do we get the 500,000 out of the ESCO?
I would submit an invoice for that 500,000 to Bank of America, who owns the financing for it. So they have our sales, or they financed our lease purchase, so they have the money. So I would submit the invoice and they would send us.
So that would reduce that by 500,000.
So the number on the consent agenda for the 911,340.34 is a maximum out of pocket for the school district in addition to the 500,000 that's already in the. So there are some other negotiations that are kind of going on behind the scenes with Shane and Sean and contractors as well to narrow down that price as much as possible. So we gave the board the 911,340 as the maximum out of pocket that we would end up having to do.
Just FYI, it's a misprint on our most recent one. It says 91,000 instead of
He updated
900.
it. He updated it to 911.
Yes, okay, I have the one that they. Yeah. Printed. The one online is, yes, good, okay.
I guess I'd ask a little bit, this is way before my time. I don't even know what this project is. What is this?
So it's an energy savings project that we're doing on 5 buildings. So it's Florence Wilson, VO, Bernadine Sitz, Charles Stones, and Ida Sharman. Where we are updating the lighting with LED, leveraging those savings to help pay for HVAC projects at all of the 5 buildings. In these 5 buildings, there's a mezzanine roof in these 5 locations, and so this part is to structurally enhance those mezzanine roofs so that they can bear the load of the HVAC rooftop.
The actual HVAC units that are needed for the efficiency we're trying to achieve in the building.
Yeah, I might add, so we updated LED lighting in all of the district's buildings. And the energy savings from all of those LED lights is going to the HVAC for the 5 buildings.
And the reason why we have that other party involved is in order to finance, there had to be a brokering, if you will, of funds that were committed. So that as we realize the savings, we're able to, how's that, Colleen, basically pay in to that brokerage is my term. It's not the right term, but
So we'll have a yearly lease payment of $340,000 for the next 20 years to pay off the fully financed amount of 17.7 million overall for the project. With that, we will then be realizing savings through those LED lights with the district, and those are utilized out offset the expense.
essentially had some guaranteed savings in that conversation with some real opportunity for much better savings. But it was all couched as a package expenditure and a way to finance it. And John's simply pointing out, except for that one was a allocation. The structural steel in the marketplace has really been moving, as some of you know, and
Well, the scope of the work has also changed in this particular, so in talking with Sean today, the structural steel was part of the bid, but the scope of the work, basically the flashing around the roof and the curbing has changed to a different style, which is much more expensive. Because I asked him the direct question, like, what was all included in the 100,000? It was the structural steel, it was everything for the project. But now it's changed, so it's $900,000 more. Than what it was gonna be.
How does that
It's been
happen?
a full year since the scope. I mean, when we were talking about this last year, trying to put this project together. And so it went to the board in I think April of last year. So with that, the market has changed as well as the scope of the project, realizing that there's more enhancements that are necessary than what was previously expected.
Yeah, when the structural engineer got involved and realized that those loads that they're now sitting on the mezzanine need to be transferred up through the roof. And then they had to allow for the movement of the building, which happens every year anyway. When they had to transfer up through there, those calculations changed, which changed the scope of the work. So it's not that we wouldn't have got there, and at some point we would have. I mean, this 900,000 would have came out once they did all the final analysis. It's just we didn't have it when the contract was initially signed up.
That's where I talked to Sean today. I think ICE or his company should bear a little bit of the responsibility on this. By not, following through and actually having someone come look at the building and go through the bid, like actually bid the process opposed to just allocating.
Well, I think it is part of the design build contract that you all signed with Honeywell and Sean. I mean, I think this process happened in an expeditious manner. That's the only reason you would sign up a design build contract. So I think, I don't know. I wasn't here for the time frame, So I don't know, I don't know.
He
the
did
reason.
have contractors come on site to look at the mezzanine roofs and they did do estimates there on the site. I just don't know the full extent of it.
I
I
think
know
once the
it is
engineer got
important.
involved, that's when it like, it's not just as simple as what we thought initially.
Yeah, part of, and we did that fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And part of the reason for that was that we had already realized a loss by not acting even quicker.
Yes.
And so there's clearly a moving target there as far as cost.
If you would have waited, it would have been less and less and less.
Yeah, well, it would have been more and more expensive, I think.
Yes,
Less of a cost.
less of the
savings.
cost savings.
Yes, that's what it cost savings.
Yes, so you were up against a time.
I'm not surprised. And it's a little bit awkward. I don't know how we do that, John, I guess. And I mean, we can ask them. Because there's a basis there, but at the same time, even at the time, there was a concern expressed about the way the market was moving on supply and cost of those resources. But so, yeah, I'm inclined to, knowing the parties involved and the extensive conversation we had, to accept it. But you make a good point, John, as far as
It's one thing to miss, it's one thing to miss a bid by a little bit, but to affect the whole project, 5.5%. That's a pretty big miss.
I guess I have a question. What are the alternatives?
But at this point, there really isn't. In fact, Sean and Honeywell have spent a month and a half trying to go back with the engineers and redesign and relook at this, bringing in other contractors, outside steel erectors, trying to figure out how to cut some costs out of this. So they really have kind of went above and beyond, trying to change the outcome here. And we're really kind of in the 11th hour at this point to be able to order the steel, get it here in time to be able to set those units and have the 5 buildings open for school next fall.
And I hate to say it, John, but 5% is nothing in this environment as far as the cost increase. Now, the cost real to the public is
5% of 20,
significant.
And I would say, I'd add to what I said before, and it's unfortunate that it's happening this way, but I think if we would have waited, got it all designed, then bid it out and found this out then, I don't know that, I don't know if your decision would have changed. You would have had less money to operate with because you would have less.
I'm not trying to make light of it at all, John.
No, I think.
I'm not saying it's.
No, it's just the whole process of this project was kind of a disaster. In my personal opinion, we went from $17 million option, we had an $11 million option. We asked for return on investment on both the lighting versus the heating and air. And then when we got to the board meeting, there was only one. They flew people in. There was a lot of pressure to get it done. I don't know why Dr. Carlin felt the pressure to get that done. But he did. So I think we should adjust the project down to meet the budget, not increase 900,000 is my personal opinion.
I agree. $900,000 miss, that's a lot. As a contractor, I don't know what was written, but yeah, I agree.
Well, I know I'm a broken record, but is this something that legal's looked at and would she have the capacity to know, is this something that we can negotiate? Yeah, this is typical of this. I don't know. This is definitely not my field, but yeah, when I saw that number, it was pretty hard to swallow for sure. But if we take the project down, then what does that look like too? That's not even possible.
We're in
You're
contract. Already
Yeah.
locked to an agreement with Honeywell for the full scope of the project as well as the sales.
We've got
lease.
equipment.
So it's not really an
We're already
option.
in place in those 5
And I
buildings.
agree with John. I think it was pushed through and I wasn't really comfortable when it happened, but that's excuses coming from me at this point. I feel like we're just gonna have to go with it and push through.
Shannon and I did sit down and we have identified some projects that we would have to postpone this year to be able to afford this project. They're fairly minimal things that we would push to next year. So part of it is 495,000 on a partial re-roof, of course, good. We have 2 generators that we can remove at 35,000 each, each of the intermediates. Partial removal on KH vertical panels. We projected a specific price for those panels, and Shane thinks that we can get it a little bit lower. So we found about 100,000 there. And then the service center project, the storage facility, we would postpone it till July 1st so that we could assume that 362,500. So with those cuts, we have come up with $1 million, 27,500. So plenty to cover it, that we wouldn't have to cut as much with pretty minimal disruption in the total plan.
No, I mean, no, I mean, I think.
Well, put it on the table. I would move that we complete the project with the costs that are projected, expecting that those are them and not more.
You foresee any additional?
No, in fact, ICE and Honeywell are continuing to try to identify other cost savings in the project. And, you know, our staff was kind enough to let contractors in over the holidays. And so we got a head start on some things, so we might be able to actually save some money and some additional shifts and things like that. So we're already trying to save some costs.
So when they say they put that responsibility on us, does that mean the responsibility goes to you to figure out how, or you said contract that out, or how did you say that, John?
Suspense. Oh, you're
So yeah, so we're gonna contract with the contractor directly, like we would hire Tetro or whoever, we're gonna do that ourselves. And I'll manage it. And that eliminates the markup from Honeywell or the mechanical contractors. So there's another $150,000 in savings by us contracting nurses.
I'm pulling parliamentarian here. We have a motion on the table, so if we can get a second, then we can discuss some more.
Second.
Thank you. Sorry to cut you.
You're good.
So Joe, any other questions or discussion?
I do appreciate, John, you pulling this off the consent because it was kind of jaw dropping, and I think it's public funds that well worth the discussion, so people don't also look at that number and be like, what the heck? So I do appreciate you moving that we discussed.
I guess I look at, I guess not to point fingers or that, but where did we drop the ball in this? Because this can't happen again. So I guess where did we go wrong?
Well, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint one specific, and again, this is before me, so. But you know, the design build process is meant to move forward quicker and get construction going sooner. Does that always mean that you have all the design completed? It doesn't, and unfortunately, the steel was missed.
Can you predict that kind of stuff? I mean, can you predict that type of?
You know, the fluctuation of the market to a certain extent. But the whole designs and the load design, no.
just unforeseen circumstances that have been uncovered throughout the scope of the project and as it's continued, as well as the rapidly increasing construction costs have all kind of added up to this final impact for.
And this isn't the first time that things like this happen. I mean, when we redid the track at, was it the high school or at Horace Good? I mean, once they started looking at it, and we didn't have the right foundation, we had to spend probably, was it at least double what we anticipated. So, I mean, I'm not trying to make this better, but I'm just saying these it just happens. You don't, I don't know how much, I'm not saying we can't do it better in the future and learn from mistakes, but this isn't the first time it's happened in recent history since I've been on.
We, the board talked about this kind of funding mechanism for another set of projects. Again, we're trying to figure out how to move forward into the future and realize savings as soon as we can with some of these investments. Take care of some of our needs. First package, we rejected, and there's reasons for that. This was the first time we tried that kind of financing, as I recall, and so it was new. And then we had COVID, and we had this wild circumstance with markets and contractors, and that drove the push. I don't think it was Carlin. I think it was trying to complete some thinking before there was a major change in administration and facilities management. But then the real push was on this market change where everything was getting really expensive if you could even get it. So yeah, there's a learning process when you say, hey, this can't happen. I think it was a learning process, but the commitment is there.
Well, yeah, and you're getting thrown in the wolves. You got
Yeah.
nothing to do with it either.
Yeah, but
Or, yeah.
Well, I think Colleen and I worked well together to find the savings to cover the cost. I mean,
Yeah.
not that we want to have to be in this position or have to defer some projects, but I think we've identified the funds to make this go. And I really hate to see us stall this project out when we're this far in, and affect school opening next fall. So,
Can you give us a progress report of the project?
yeah, no, it's going great. Like I mentioned, we got in there early. In fact, all the units, I mean, I don't know if some of you've seen the units in this facility, the round VRF units that are installed. But they did all of Bernadine sits over Christmas break. And they were in a couple of the other schools as well, installing the units. And so we're ahead of the ballgame. The lighting, the LED project just went seamlessly. When we had a couple little hiccups in there, but the staff rolled right through it. It worked great. Contractors were very accommodating, and so that project's finished. We just finished the punch list with that. They did a great job coming back in and cleaning those things back, and getting it out of there. So Honeywell and ICE, Sean, I mean, they were really and Drew Rose was the electrical engineering side of ICE. They did a great job of making that project go, and really went well.
Have we started on the 5 schools with the heating project?
Yes, no, those are the units that we installed over Christmas break. Yeah, and they're continuing to work after school hours currently. So in those 5 schools. So we can kind of get ahead of the game.
The structural still would have to happen in May as soon as school is out.
Yeah, so the schedule for structural steel is hopefully contracted by the end of this week. That would put it here the end of May in order to hit the schedule for being able to open in the fall.
Any questions?
Just
Discussion?
hope it shows up.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to be delaying school because of this project.
But we got a good jump on it. We just don't want to delay it here.
Yeah, and I'd sure like to put $1 million towards salaries for our employees now instead of a structure steel, but.
I mean, this doesn't really,
All like you.
so Randy,
I
the funds that would be utilized from this comes out of our capital projects line item, so it wouldn't be used for salaries regardless. No, can't be. So if that helps you rest any easier, it's not really funds that could be allocated towards that anyways.
Essentially,
I agree.
There's
There's gotta be other options. I mean, I don't know what that is. I do this kind of work for a living, but.
That's the unfortunate thing about having Andy have to recuse himself. It's the value that he brings to the board where he does this all the time. I spoke with him for, an hour and a half, 2 hours this afternoon, and he's obviously has to be guarded on what he can tell me because his company is obviously involved. But it just seems like a big miss to me. And I feel like if there would have been more due diligence done by the, you know, the companies that ICE had contracted with to do the structural, that there wouldn't have been this big a mess. I feel ICE has a little negligence in the project, I guess. Whether we can extract dollars out of them for that or not, I think it's just moving forward with future projects. I think we need to bear that in mind if we choose to use this company. Good points.
More points? Don't want us to forget we have.
Yeah, and a second.
Yes, but we can keep discussing if you have more questions. Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed?
That's interesting.
Okay.
What does that do to us?
I mean, we can't not approve it at this point.
We just did.
So there's a legal.
Step would be. Visiting with legal, we can't move forward. We're paying for the project.
Yeah, I mean, we're locked into the agreement. We're already paying for the project. We already have it financed.
And we'll see
This
what
risks,
agreement-
this risks school not starting in August
can't
on
spend
time.
Our approval. And I agree, but I don't know what the solution is.
I mean, what kind of compensation from ICE would, I mean, would make it more palatable to where you would approve it?
Well, perfect world, I think the three companies should split it. Third, and third.
Is there any
I
way?
think Will's gonna claim they have nothing to do with it. And ICE is gonna claim that the contract says that we're on the hook for it, so they're not gonna do that. But the reason to bring it up is, you know, I mean, ICE made a pretty big mistake. And when I talked to him on the phone today, he admitted it. And, I think it's, as we move forward, I think you just need to be aware of what companies we maybe choose to do business with.
I 100% agree, and I 100% agree, like, I mean, I think a big component was left out in that they didn't do any evaluation of that, but we can't change that now. And is there any way we're gonna get some kind of default or something like that if we don't move forward with the project? I mean, you said we're locked into it, so is there any repercussion if we don't move forward?
And is there any way to move forward and then seek out some of those,
Well,
that money back?
That's what I would recommend at this point is approve the project to at least move forward. And we'll work behind the scenes with legal to see what we can do on that side. But from the get-go, they told us $500,000 is an estimate. And if it comes above that, it is on the district. So they've said that from the beginning. We knew.
Yeah, I get that, but I don't think anybody suspects that it's gonna be almost $1 million.
Yeah,
more.
they also
I
said
think
that they were
that's
pretty
that.
confidently sure it wasn't going to exceed that.
So, I mean,
Well, why don't we get some advice from legal counsel, because that's ultimately what the position we're in is a legal question, right?
Yes.
So that might be some information that would be very informative to the board.
Absolutely. But your next board meeting is in February. So if we,
Special meeting.
okay, I just wanted to make sure you guys were open to doing a special meeting if that's the case. To move forward.
If we need to be at this point.
Yeah, we don't have to.
is that what you want, John?
It ain't what I want.
And I'm just saying, what
I'm just
is,
bringing up my concerns.
Right.
We're a taxing entity that just
Irrelevant.
basically blew $1 million by rushing a project through and not doing our due diligence. Because, I mean, that comes back to us, is what it really comes back to.
I mean, potentially, because I do feel like to a certain extent, does that get done? Is that the normal process for that particular? again, I wish Andy could be in on the conversation because I don't know, is that the norm of how that would have been developed had it been given more time? Does that make sense? Like, I guess my question is, if we talk to legal, is it then gonna make a difference? Like, if she says you're stuck, I mean, are we gonna be able to proceed forward? Or is that even a waste of time? Is,
Well, I would feel better making a vote again, knowing my options. If she says, no, this is what it is, we're stuck, okay, that changes things. Or no, there's other options out there, that changes. Do you get where I'm going? I feel like if I had more options, or are we told that the gauntlets, no, this is, you have to, well, okay, that changes things.
okay, so her just reviewing and giving option. I shouldn't have just directed it this way because you also refer to that vote, but, okay.
It's to all of us because we all own the vote right
Yep,
now. so.
yep, yeah. But I just want to make sure that that step is what we need, is that what you need to move forward, or if there is something else.
I just want to know our options.
Okay, you got what you need at this point?
Thank you.
So do we go in there?
Yes. Aspirin. I don't even bring the person. I think I do in my car. I'll go to my car. You do? Okay. We're gonna move on to our, I believe, our last one in new business, discussion of the agreement with the integrated consulting engineers for design fees. Starting to review the 2024 HVAC improvement project at A. Hubert. And a sum of $109,750. There's also some questions or concerns about that. So come on up again. It's fine. I'll just do like. Same way. We can entertain a motion. If you want to.
Sorry, I think I asked for this one to be moved off of the consent agenda as well. And I don't really want to speak about this one tied to the other one because Andy's back in the room, but that was my thinking.
Yeah, so this is a separate.
Correct.
It's design fees for A. Hubert HVAC project. It's in our long range plan.
Yeah, it's a 20-year long range plan. This will be the next facility. And HVAC changed out for the 2024.
And this was already on the long range facility.
Is it the plan to do these facility upgrades through ESSER or ESCO projects?
No, the only project that we had intentions to do the ESCO on is the one that we are currently approved with the 5 buildings. So Eda Sharman, VO, Sid Stones, and Florence Wilson.
Okay, so this one would not be an ESCO project. This would just be a capital outlay project.
For capital outlay, our 20 part of carrying out our 20-year plan. We are currently with ICE designing Jenny Barker and Plymel. Those are already in the works, and this would be the next one in the series.
What do you, have they given you any sort of anticipated budget of what this is gonna cost?
There is there's
I
a,
don't remember that sheet.
yeah, I'm in the process of updating and reviewing that now for the 20-year long range plan, but I don't have that.
We have a 20-year schedule on HVACs that are indexed out for increase in costs.
So this doesn't have a contract on it at this point. That's what we would be approving to do this
You're
with them.
approving the design
Okay.
here, just the design of the building mechanically.
If I recall correctly, I can't get the drive that I need, but I think it's 1.6 million Like
think
1.675
6 or 7, yes.
that I recall from the 20-year plan.
You know, have they indicated what kind of system they want to do in this building?
Similar to all the others, they're doing the VRF and most of the classrooms, assisted with the DOAS units, for makeup air throughout the building. But I think that's kind of been their common theme with these 5 that are currently designing and are currently installing. And then this will follow along the same line.
Are you comfortable with that as our facilities?
I am,
With VRS?
yes.
I don't know anything about those, so I don't know the right
They're
question to
the
ask.
systems we've currently installed here. And I think that they seem to be working well.
You know, who would do the architectural design in the fire?
The architectural design,
Yeah, it's not included.
there shouldn't be a whole lot of architectural, design cost unless we're trying to carry these DOAS. And we'll get into that a little bit further. The fire alarm, it's another portion of the 20-year plan, but it's not part of this design. It'd be part of the design.
What's that building having it now for
A 2-pipe system, the old 2-pipe system, yes.
You want to talk about some of the cost issues and repairs that you had on this building?
Yeah, no, so yes, we actually bumped back a couple other buildings, 2 or 3 years because of the issues that we're currently having at Abe Hubert with the 2-pipe system. We've got a lot of pipes and valves that are corroded. We got, so the system's given Ken and myself a lot of fits and the staff and students. And it was our decision to move this up in that 20-year plan, because it's one of 2 buildings still left on the 2-pipe system, which is sorely outdated.
Did this project go out for a bid?
It will.
This is just a contract for the design service. But they don't include structural in this, right?
No.
So if there's any structural, then that'll be on top of, they're gonna hire structural, but that fee would be
They
on
would
top.
hire, yeah, that would be in addition to this, but this is just to start the mechanical design to see, what type of units fit best and the capacities and the sizes of the units, that kind of thing. And then we'd have to get into structural after that.
So I would say that this contract amount will likely go up. They're gonna need to hire a structural engineer at some point. They're probably gonna put a DOAS on the roof and have to beef up the steel wherever that unit. DOAS is a dedicated outside air unit, so it's part of the VRS system. It brings fresh air into the building. And so that's a pretty big, large piece of rooftop equipment. And so they're generally gonna have to beef up the steel wherever that goes. So I'm guessing they don't have that included. Probably because they don't know what they're.
They don't
gonna
know
do
what
quite
they
yet.
have until they get that design.
And so they'll eventually, I would just say that number is gonna change. There's gonna be a change order to their contract with structural, I would imagine. So. The structural number is gonna change? Yeah, so this contract, they exclude design services for structural engineer. But it's inevitable, they're gonna need a structure. I would assume, it's pretty likely they're gonna need a structural engineer at some point, once they get a little farther with the mechanical design and know what equipment they're gonna use and where they're gonna put it on the building, then they're gonna need to have a structural engineer look at that. So they'll probably, I would suspect they're gonna come back and ask for a change order to pick up that structural engineering cost. So it's out there. It's just, I would just say, just look at this, just understand that they haven't nailed that down yet because they don't probably know what mechanical equipment they're gonna be using yet. So they don't know what the scope of the structural design is gonna entail.
They wouldn't know what to tell the structural engineer design.
Right. So is that typical? Is that the typical process, or is this?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't talk to Sean. I don't know if he could just include structural or had a good handle of what structural would cost. I didn't ask him that question, so.
This seems to have been the process that before me was started with ICE, starting with the mechanical, getting into the design and then hiring the structural behind that. So
Are you comfortable with that process?
I am.
I mean, you're the guy now, so that's.
No, I'm completely comfortable.
I mean, if we wanna, go back and ask him for an estimate of what he thinks that will be, he could probably give us a ballpark range of what he thinks the structure will come in later. The cost of structural design will come in later.
But if you're looking for an actual cost, solid cost,
You gotta have the design first.
then let him start first.
So, can we assume that this is a project that you did not put in your cuts because it's an important project that needs to be done? We're having issues and
Yeah, and it would be cutting next year's budget instead of this year, so we're doing cuts to this year's projects instead of next year.
This is designing next year's project. So like so we have a number to look at, a solid number when Colleen and I set the budget in July.
And the 20-year indexed table that we have with the schedule with all the HVACs, it has these costs included in the total cost that is projected. So the structural and then the engineering fees are all included in the total cost.
so what was it initially laid out for next year or you?
We moved it up about 2 years,
Right.
I believe, and moved some other buildings back in that process because of the issues we're currently having.
I kind of feel like we're walking down the same road we just walked down. And I understand building and I understand there's contingencies and things happen we don't, but I'm not okay with just approving these projects with, well, it's gonna cost more money. Someone's gotta be able to give a ballpark. I'm not asking for exact dollars or whatever, but I feel like I'm going down the same road I just went down.
This is a different construction delivery method. We talked about design, build, for. This is design, bid, build. So 2 different processes. Okay, the other one was made to increase the time to construction. Kind of like we discussed. This process is not the same. You'll design the complete building, mechanical, structural, architectural, fire alarm, that's the case. Okay, you'll bid all those components out and then you'll contract. So it's not the same process.
What are they going to, I don't really see much in here about commissioning. What services are they going to provide when it comes to commission? Because in my experience, VRF systems, whether you have problems with them or not, greatly depends on the quality of the installation. And so I would really want to know what they are going to be providing in regards to, they talk about a couple site visits. One, they say 2 site observation visits are included for the MVP installation and writing a punch list. So I'm thinking one of those is going to be the punch list at the end. And only 1 site observation midway through. Well, VRF system is super critical that the refrigerant lines are installed correctly. There's a lot of room for error in that process that can give you a lot of problems with your system down the road. So a VRF system can be a very good system if it's installed correctly, and there needs to be, quality oversight during installation to make sure that we have a good quality system. It isn't going to burn up compressors and have a lot of other sort of problems down the road. So I'm a little concerned that there's only 1 site observation visit in that. I think there should be more, and then just what is their involvement going to be during mechanical like during startup and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I can just speak to what happened here. The Samsung reps all came out with Tetro to do the final commissioning. So I would assume that will follow the same.
You mean this building when you say
Yeah, administration building.
And Sean Miller does come out pretty frequently to this area. So I know on this building in particular, he came out and did several more walkthroughs than what was in the original design plan as well, to ensure that the project was done correctly.
We can ask him to include more site visits.
I just don't think one, if I'm reading this, he's gonna come out 1 time for a pre-bid meeting, which is good. 1, 2 site observation visits to include the interim review of the MEP, construction installation, and a written punch list, and then 1 site observation visit per discipline per facility is included for final review of mechanical, electrical, construction installation, right up final punch list. So you mentioned punch list price, but I basically think he's only got 1 or 2 site visits during construction, which to me doesn't seem like quite enough for a VRF spending. You know, there's a lot of things have to be done right for those systems to work without problems. So I would recommend we revisit that with them, express that concern to them, and ask them what other construction inspection processes you could recommend.
Is this the company we've worked on for all of the systems that we've put in? Because you said the 5 buildings and then previous week, okay.
Historically, yeah, the school district has worked with Sean Miller and consulting engineers for several years prior to this, for all of our HVAC engineering. And has had a really long standing good history with, that relationship, as well as just his level of knowledge on the school district and what systems are here.
And electrical side as well, not just mechanical. They do electrical and the fire alarms, intercoms.
It was definitely a valuable resource for us during all of the long range planning too, and just knowing.
That's the other thought. So he has the item here about, when he talks about additional services, reviewing of or revisions of the construction documents resulting from value engineering suggestions provided by the client, owner, construction manager, or other contractors on the project. So I guess the way I would look at that is if he's giving kind of a ballpark budget for the project and it comes in a lot higher than that and VE has to be done. I don't feel like, I feel like that's part of their design responsibility is to design to within reason of the budget. I mean, if it's over, but if it's significantly over and it takes a lot of VEing, I don't necessarily think that we should have to pay for that extra time. You know, I mean, we're paying for him to design and to the budget that at least now I understand he's not giving us a guaranteed maximum price. The engineer isn't, he's budgeting, but if he says it's a $1.8 million project and it comes back at $3 million after it's bid out and it has to be redesigned, I mean, we've already paid him to design it once. I hate to see us have to pay him to design it a second time. So I know he can't control the market and what the market's gonna have to say, but.
Right, and this budget was set last year, so, I mean, once he gets into it, we'll probably need to reestablish what that is. Come, end of June. Based on what we know about the current conditions.
That 1.8 budget was how old?
Just last April is when we did the full plan and approved it all with the board. And it is indexed out in that 20 years, so that some of that inflation is already expected within the plan.
I mean, I think that's probably pretty standard language in the proposal, what he has there, but I just hate to see a situation where he designed something that ends up costing way more than he had kind of projected to us, and then he's got to spend time redesigning and we're paying for that.
So do you have a recommendation?
Well, I would like to see Shane go back and ask for a budget for structural design, just so we kind of understand the full breadth of what the design services on this would be. Help us, I think he can give us a projection or range. And I'd also like him to offer up a more detailed inspection services during construction with that VRF and let us know what the cost of that's going to be.
I second that.
Me too.
Well, that wasn't necessarily a motion.
I don't
We're not
need a
taking
motion
action.
for it. We're just kidding.
That's
Whatever
just a request for
that-
information. Send it that direction.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay. Not to drag the meeting on more, but would anybody like to comment on board open discussion?
Lots of thoughts at the beginning. They all left me down, so.
Well, sorry.
Go ahead.
There was a lot of stuff this round, and there was a lot of stuff on the consent agenda that I asked to be moved to the discussion, and I will take that on. I can make the meeting last a lot longer, and it can be a little bit burdensome, but I think as a board, we owe it to the public, especially when we're spending their money, to discuss what we're doing and why we're doing it in front of them. Instead of just putting it on the consent agenda and then having to answer the questions, I would rather they answer the questions here in front of them, and if they have questions, they can talk to us after this, but at least we get it out in the open and understand what's going on with the project and why they're requesting more funding from us. So anyway, I appreciate that. I know it adds extra labor and extra work to everybody's day, but I think transparency is a good thing. So anyway, that's all I have. That's a good thing, John. Always good to do that, I think. I don't have anything.
It'd be great to get the drama kids here. I can't think of all of their accolades of late, but
They're scheduled thing.
oh, good. Okay, so that's been great.
And so is Alice Hill for her award as well.
Yeah, given by her peers, which I think is even more.
We've got them on the agenda.
Great. That sounds great. Other than that, Ready?
I think we're doing some things right. I think the school district's trying to do things right, especially with recruitment and retention and that kind of thing. So I'm happy with that. And again, I'm happy with everybody's enthusiasm. It always seems like everybody who comes before us and presents always seems to love their job and love what they're doing, and I'm impressed by that.
I really enjoyed the presentation, appreciated the presentation tonight on the Educators Rising. And I'm also excited about the teacher internship opportunity, and really excited to see how that first semester goes. I think both of those programs have the potential to do a lot to try to help get our young students interested in education someday. So thank you for that and all the work you put into that.
A lot of great presentations all the way through, all the way from Mr. Deloach. Great on the academic side, all the way to the Educators Rising. So board, just want to thank you for your support, and it happens because you guys are diligent at your job. So thank you.
The next board meeting of the Board of Education will take place on Monday, February 6th, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the board meeting room. And we're going to move into an executive session.
Madam President, I move we go into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under KOMA, to discuss an individual employee's performance beginning at December 15th. Yeah. So 9:55. And the open meeting will resume in the board meeting room at after. I would like to, are we starting?
Yes.
Dr. Dominguez in the session? Okay, I would like to invite Dr. Dominguez to join us in executive session.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
All right.